Chapter 10-13. In Star Group. Yi Chen sat on the sofa and looked at Li Ziwei with a frown. Are you saying that an ice coffin female corpse floated from the moon? Yes, Palace Master. Li Ziwei bowed slightly and nodded. He did not dare to hide anything and told Yi Chen everything. At the end of his sentence, he added, in fact, this ice coffin female corpse has been floating in space for a long time. When Earth's spiritual energy recovered, it was detected by the satellites of various countries. At that time, many scientists predicted that she would land within 10 days. Then why did she only arrive now? Yi Chen asked. I'm not sure about that. Li Ziwei shook his head and said, however, I heard that this ice coffin female corpse actually arrived above the Earth's ozone layer a long time ago. Later on, she seemed to have stopped moving and only officially landed today. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Chen's brows relaxed slowly as he thought to himself, it seems like this ice coffin female corpse encountered the world barrier when it was about to descend to Earth. However, with her arrival, doesn't that mean that the seal set up by the heavenly Tao before he died is on the verge of shattering? Thinking to this point, he could not help but shake his head. The arrival of the ice coffin female corpse was not a good sign. If she could come, it meant that the group of foreign cultivators who had invaded Earth would also descend. After all, before the heavenly Tao died, 5 of the 9 divine monuments transformed from his body fragments were stolen by the 9 families. Coupled with the changes that occurred after the spiritual energy recovery, the seal's power was weakened again. Looks like I have to make a trip to the border to see where this so-called ice coffin female corpse came from. Yi Chen then stood up and looked at the Patriarch of Hell next to him. Patriarch, do you dare to come with me? The Patriarch rubbed his hands and chuckled. I've been waiting for you to say that for a long time. I can't wait to peel off the female corpse in that ice coffin and see if it's a woman. The ice coffin female corpse arrived at the border between China and Myanmar, and a shocking battle broke out at the border. In the face of the official statement of China, the powerhouses of the various countries turned a blind eye. They even openly attacked the Chinese on the border. The internet was also arguing non-stop about this matter. According to the latest news, the unrest caused by the female corpse in the ice coffin is getting more and more intense. So far, more than a dozen Chinese people living at the border have gone missing, and 8 or 9 of them are women. That's not all. Many Chinese powerhouses joined forces and landed on the border to declare China's sovereignty. A war broke out between the two sides, and many Chinese powerhouses died. I heard that the drug lord, General Chakai, is one of them. He has subdued a ferocious powerhouse. He's the one who killed many Chinese martial artists and even gave us the middle finger at the border. They're too arrogant. They're too arrogant. How dare these people cause trouble at the border of China? They're ignoring the billions of people in China. 3:00 in the afternoon. In the western part of southern Yunnan, there was a small city bordering Myanmar. Originally, people from both countries lived there, but after the incident, they were all heavily guarded. On a border that was less than 300 meters wide, many powerhouses were cursing at each other. The air was filled with a thick murderous aura and the smell of blood. Chinese monkey, come at me if you have the guts. Weren't you guys filled with righteous indignation earlier? Ha ha ha, the Chinese monkeys are afraid. They don't dare to come over. Do you think you're worthy of being called Chinese powerhouses? Go home and take care of your children. The opposite side of the border was densely packed with people. If one were to take a closer look, they would realize that they were all armed. There were thousands of them, but they were the private forces of the drug lords. At the front of the crowd, there was a ferocious beast that looked like a lion squatting on the ground, and a bald man was sitting on its back. The bald man seemed to be Myanmar. He was only in his 30s, and there was a deep cut on his face. His eyes were filled with bloodlust. It was the biggest drug lord in Myanmar, General Chakai. However, the general was looking at his people with a faint smile as they kept humiliating the Chinese people on the other side. Seeing that the Chinese powerhouses on the other side of the border were glaring at them angrily, but they refused to come over, he could not help but turn around and say to someone beside him, continue cursing, "If you can anger a Chinese person, I'll reward you with 1 million USD. The man was overjoyed when he heard that. He immediately jumped out and pointed at the other side and cursed, "I'm crossing your border. What can you do to me? I'm jumping back again. I'm jumping back again. Come and kill me if you dare. Bastard, bastard!" Faced with such provocation, a Chinese powerhouse hundreds of meters away could no longer hold it in and charged over. "Old Xie, come back. Don't fall into their trap." Old Master Gu, who was in charge of guarding the area, immediately stopped him. There seemed to be more than one such example. The other side had sent mercenaries to create a situation at the border to provoke the Chinese side so that they could kill them. Before that, 5 Chinese powerhouses had already died. Faced with Old Master Gu's reprimand, Old Xie did not hesitate and laughed tragically. "We martial artists do things based on our passion. If I die today, so be it, but the dignity of China cannot be humiliated." Die! In a breath, he had already flown hundreds of meters away and slapped General Chakai, who was on the ferocious beast. On the other hand, he let go of the lackey who had insulted him earlier. That was because he knew that the culprit of all this was the big drug lord in front of him. Only by killing him would he be able to inspire the people. Faced with such monstrous killing intent, General Chakai did not move at all. He looked at Old Xie, who was getting closer and closer to him, as if he was watching a show. His eyes were filled with disdain. When Old Xie's palm was less than 5 steps away from the former, someone behind General Chakai made a move. It was an old man wrapped in a black robe. The other party only stretched out his palm and slapped the top of Old Xie's head. Old Xie's hair stood on end, but he realized that he could not move, as if he had been cursed. It was because of this person that General Chakai dared to be so unscrupulous, and a few Chinese powerhouses had died under the strange and unpredictable power of the curse. He could not help but frown. "I'm not willing to give up. Fight me fairly if you have the ability. Otherwise, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Just you." His words seemed to have an effect. The black-robed old man's hand paused in midair, then he smiled sinisterly. "If it were any other time, I wouldn't even bother to attack a piece of trash like you. However, on account of what you said earlier, I've suddenly changed my mind. I won't kill you. I'll chop off your limbs and hang you on the flagpole for the Chinese to see." "I'm looking forward to their expressions," the black old man cackled, then reached out his withered hand and grabbed Old Xie's arms. Old Xie's eyes were wide open, and he wanted to self-destruct. However, at that moment an extremely indifferent voice was heard, "Very good, very good. I won't kill you. I'll only skin you alive, make you into a human skin lantern, and hang it on the border of China." P.S. Chapter 4. There's one more chapter. I'm writing it now. Demon Nanny in the City's latest chapter. Demon Nanny in the City's full-text reading address. /71748 Demon Nanny in the City's TXT download address. Demon Nanny in the City's mobile reading address. /71748 For convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite on the right to record this time. A martial artist's actions are based on passion. Read the record, you can see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Demon Nanny in the City, please recommend it to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 1014. Very good, very good. I'll only skin you alive and pull out your tendons. I'll make you into a human skin lantern and hang it on the border of China. Although this sudden voice was neither loud nor soft, it resounded through the world without missing a single word. Under countless gazes, space distorted in the distance as a figure flashed over like a bolt of lightning. The black-robed old man's expression changed, as if he had thought of something. Not only did he not retreat, but he even grabbed at Elder Xie again. The China number 1, Mad Southern Yi. He had already recognized the person's identity. Therefore, he did not escape immediately. Instead, he grabbed Elder Xie first, wanting to take Elder Xie hostage. However, as soon as he stretched out his hand, he was horrified to discover that he could not move at all. It was as if the surrounding space was squeezing him tightly. At the next moment, the thin figure approached from afar and descended from the sky. It landed lightly beside him and revealed its true face. "Mr. Yi. That's Mad Southern Yi." At that moment, countless cries rang out in the Chinese camp at almost the same time. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Yi Chen glanced at Old Master Gu and the rest and nodded lightly in response. Then, he waved his hand. Elder Xie, who was frozen in the air, immediately regained his ability to move. Elder Xie immediately knelt on one knee, his eyes brimming with tears. "Mr. Yi, you're finally here," Yi Chen smiled lightly. "We'll talk about it later. You should go back and recuperate first. I'll handle everything." Elder Xie did not argue. He stood up straight and returned to the Chinese camp, looking at Yi Chen respectfully. Yi Chen lifted his head to look at the black-robed old man. "You're not bad. Not only did you trespass the border of China, you even dared to kill so many people from China in public." The black-robed old man opened his mouth with all his might, as if he wanted to beg for mercy, but he realized that he could not make a sound. At that moment, his eyes were wide open, and the shock in his heart had reached its peak. Even his soul was trembling. Too powerful. Before Yi Chen, he realized that he, one of the most powerful yin-yang masters in Japan, was as weak as an ant. He could not resist at all. "I don't want to listen to your nonsense." Yi Chen squinted and grabbed him with his hand. Then, he peeled his skin off in front of everyone. The strongest yin-yang master in Japan had endured the cruelest torture in the world. Even after his skin was peeled off, he still didn't die. "I said I'll skin you alive and pull out your tendons. I'll make a human skin lantern and hang it on the border. I'll definitely do it." Yi Chen melted his flesh by force and extracted his astral body, sealing it in the human skin lantern. He grabbed at the air again, and a 10-meter-long flagpole swept through the air and sank deep into the border. Above it, a piece of human skin was like an inflated balloon. It really was like a human skin lantern, and the painful facial features were gradually magnified. His soul was sealed in the lantern and would be suppressed here for all eternity. He would be despised by all the Chinese people. At the sight of this, everyone's eyes widened, and their gazes were filled with intense fear. It was too tragic. This method was more painful than killing them. The expression of the drug lord, General Chakai, who had been sitting quietly, changed completely. He patted the ferocious beast under him, as if he was about to escape. To his despair, as Yi Chen appeared, the ferocious giant beast beneath him was crawling on the ground. Its body was shaking like a sieve. "Master, save me, save me. I've completed this task according to your instructions. You have to save me." He could not help but roar at the air. However, there was no movement in the air at all. He shuddered when he saw Yi Chen walking over step by step. He ordered immediately, "Shoot, shoot! Kill him, kill him!" The thousands of mercenaries that he had trained who killed without blinking were motionless at that moment, as if they had been immobilized. Plop! Chakai knelt heavily on the ground. "Spare me, spare me!" At that moment, he realized that he had been used as a tool. He was furious and terrified. Yi Chen pressed his palm on his head, and performed the soul-searching tactic forcefully. He killed him with a palm a few seconds later. He smirked coldly, his gaze as cold as a knife. "Japanese, looks like I really didn't scare you guys the last time." Through the soul-searching tactic, He found out that the Japanese had also sent people to fight for the female corpse in the ice coffin. However, the other party had sent a yin-yang master to secretly bribe the Myanmar drug lord, promising to support his international position and let him harass the Chinese border and restrain the Chinese forces. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At that moment, the Patriarch of Hell, Yi Wuxuang, and the rest rushed over. Old Master Gu took a few steps forward and bowed with a guilty expression. "Mr. Yi, what should we do with these people?" He was filled with guilt toward Yi Chen. The Gu family had risen through the ranks because of their investment in Yi Chen. However, they also had an unfilial son, Gu Shaokuan, which caused the relationship between the two parties to be completely severed. After that, he cleaned up the family, handed over all the wealth of the Gu family to the national treasury, and disbanded the Gu family. He was not afraid of going to the front lines with his old body. He just wanted to be loyal to the country before he died. However, after the incident with Chakai and the others, he realized that even though he had the heart to serve his country, he did not have the strength to do so. "Kill them all," Yi Chen said extremely calmly. "Chop off your head and hang it on the border so that people will know what China's dignity is. So that people will know that those who offend China will definitely die." These people were all drug dealers, and their hands were stained with blood. Their deaths were not to be regretted. The reason why Yi Chen did not care earlier was that he did not notice their existence. Now that they were in trouble, naturally, he would kill them without mercy. "Good." Old Man Gu nodded slightly and didn't object. He turned around to instruct his men to deal with this matter. Yi Chen looked at his old back and suddenly said, "Old Gu, you don't have to blame yourself too much. At the very least, you've never owed the country and the people anything." He had also heard about the Gu family. His original intention was for the Gu family to execute Gu Shaokuan. Who would have thought that the old man was too unyielding? Old Man Gu stopped in his tracks when he heard that. His body trembled slightly as he said in a hoarse voice, "Thank you for your advice, Mr. Yi. I'm fine." Yi Chen then looked at old Xie from before. "Old Master, can you bring me to the place where the female corpse in the ice coffin appeared? If you have a request, I dare not refuse." Elder Xie stepped forward, bowed and cupped his fists. Soon after, another Chinese powerhouse stepped forward. "I'm Hao Zhongyi. I'm willing to be Mr. Ye's pawn." Bang bang bang. "I'm Sun Pengju. I'm willing to be Mr. Ye's pawn." "I'm Wu Yu. I'm willing to be Mr. Ye's pawn." In an instant, dozens of figures walked out one after another. They spoke in unison, and their voices shook the void. "Very good." Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back. His long hair fluttered like a waterfall even though there was no wind. "This time, I'll make the Western sect devoid of gods. P.S. Today's update is over. Sorry for the long wait. After fighting the Western sect, you can go to the ancient desolate realm to look for the female lead. Please get monthly votes and recommendation vote." Chapter 10:15. Nam, Kansas. It was a township in the northwestern part of Myanmar's Shan state. It was equivalent to a county in China and was also the gateway to the northwestern part of Myanmar. The place was famous for its ancient pagodas and Buddhist temples, which combined the essence of Myanmar's ancient culture. Nam Khan had attracted a lot of tourists since its development. However, this prosperous scene was disrupted that day because a female corpse in an ice coffin had drifted in space for 10 months and finally landed in Nam, Kansas. The exact location was the southwestern part of Nam, Kansas. The place was surrounded by ancient trees and a lush mountain range, Turtle Mountain. To Nan Khan, this was undoubtedly a misfortune. As soon as the female corpse in the ice coffin landed, the people from the secret realms started to stir. After all, Myanmar was weak and the overlords from the other countries didn't care if they wanted to or not. Fortunately, the Nankin government was rather quick-witted. Before the ice coffin woman's corpse had landed, they had organized a police force to evacuate everyone within 100 miles of Turtle Mountain. It was as if they were saying, I've cleared the battlefield for you. You can do whatever you want. Myanmar doesn't want the female corpse anymore. However, the Turtle Mountain was 100-mile radius. To the overlords from the other countries, any demi-sage or beast king could easily destroy it. However, a strange thing happened. The first thing that happened was when the female corpse in the ice coffin landed on South Turtle Mountain. The mountain started to emit a thick fog. The beasts living in the forest started to mutate under the fog. Their speed of evolution was even more terrifying than the revival of spiritual chi. In just a few hours, more than a dozen beast kings were born on Turtle Mountain, including a beast king. If the beast king was equivalent to a demi-sage, then the beast king was equivalent to a sage. Therefore, when some overlords charged into Turtle Mountain, they thought it would be a piece of cake. However, the beast king tore them apart mercilessly. The beast king was an old turtle with a huge body. The old turtle carried a mountain on its back and warned the invaders, "Don't blame me for killing anyone who dares to lay a finger on the Moon Palace Queen." All of their achievements were thanks to the female corpse in the ice coffin. Since the female corpse came from the moon, they were referred to as the Moon Palace Queen by the old turtle. Facing this warning, the overlords from the other countries were enraged. They pressured the Myanmar government to send bombers, tanks, and other armed forces to attack Turtle Mountain. However, to their astonishment, when the bombers flew above Turtle Mountain, all their electronic equipment malfunctioned and they crashed. As for the nuclear bombs and other large-scale weapons, they didn't explode at all. It was as if they were duds. While the situation was in a stalemate, a god walked out of Mount Olympus. It was Hermes, one of the 12 main gods. Hermes, the messenger of God, charged into the Tortoise Mountain with his magic wand in his hand. He had an earth-shattering battle with the old tortoise. The old tortoise was injured and had no choice but to hide with the female corpse in the ice coffin. The capture of Turtle Mountain resulted in the appearance of all the peerless holy medicines in the mountain. As a result, an earth-shattering battle officially began. Powerful cultivators from different countries fought over the peerless holy medicines. Many Chinese cultivators were the first to be affected. Dongying, America, India, and other countries took the lead to suppress the Chinese cultivators. As a result, 8 Chinese overlords died on the spot, 6 were captured alive, and 4 went missing. Among them, Li Ying, the deputy palace master of the Dragon King Palace, escaped with a few people. At the northwest corner of Turtle Mountain, the terrain was relatively flat. There was a waterfall that wasn't considered wide, and water was flowing down crazily. The river under the waterfall was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. Suddenly, bubbles rose from the bottom of the river. Voila! A few seconds later, a figure appeared from the bottom of the river. It was a woman, but she was drenched. Sister Li. The woman was only in her early 20s. She was splashing water with a pale face, as if she was looking for someone. Sister Li, don't die. If you die, what will happen to Wan Gulyulu? As more bubbles appeared from the bottom of the river, a terrifying stream of blood floated up, followed by a beautiful figure. If Yi Chun was there, he would definitely realize that it was Li Ying. However, there was a bloody hole the size of a thumb on her right arm at that moment. Blood was flowing non-stop. Sister Li, the woman was surprised when she saw that. She stretched her hand and pulled Li Ying, who was floating on the river, up with great difficulty. Li Ying grunted and endured the pain. She said with difficulty, "Lin Wan, keep your voice down. I'm fine." After saying that, she looked around cautiously and said weakly, "Where are we?" Sister Li, it looks like the northwest corner of Turtle Mountain. Lin Wan held her and was about to walk to the shore. It's less than 10 kilometers away from the border of China. Hold on, I'll bring you back now. Li Ying touched her body by instinct and realized that her communication device was long gone. She could not help but force a smile. 8 people from China died this time, and 6 were captured. We can't contact the country. Sister Li, do you think we'll die here? Lin Wan's voice was trembling. She was a level 7 mutant. She had joined the Dragon King Palace because of her extraordinary talent. This was her first time on a mission, and she did not expect to encounter such an experience. No, trust me. Li Ying took a deep breath in and forced a smile on her face. Then, she said, I'll definitely bring you back alive. Lin Wan nodded slightly. She bit her lip and fell silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, she raised her head and said, Do you think the Palace Master will come to save us? Palace Master. Li Ying's originally dim eyes immediately shook, and a trace of admiration bloomed in her eyes. He will. The Palace Master knows everything. He will definitely come to save us. Lin Wan's frown finally relaxed a little. As she helped Li Ying to the shore, she said, What kind of man do you think the Palace Master is? Wanner has never seen him before. She was born into a wealthy family, and she was destined to live a carefree life. However, she still chose to join the Dragon King Palace, which had an extremely high death rate. All of this was because of a man. That man was a legend in China. It could be said that Lin Wan had grown up listening to the man's battle achievements when she first fell in love. She did not know if she had fallen in love with that man. After all, they had never met. However, one thing was for sure, she admired that man a lot. That was why she had been cultivating so hard. Her goal was to get close to that man. Lin Wan suddenly said, Sister Li, if I die, do you think the Palace Master will know that Wanner exists in this world? Li Ying coughed, Don't talk nonsense. You won't die. Sister Li, then do you like the Palace Master? The little girl suddenly asked. Chapter 10:16. Li Ying was stunned at first, then a hint of redness appeared on her pale face. Stupid girl, don't talk nonsense. You must like the Palace Master. They said that you're almost 30 years old, but you're still so cold to other men. Lin Wan didn't notice this at all. She lowered her head and said, That's true. For such an outstanding man like the Palace Master, no woman would be able to resist his charm. Hearing this, Li Ying was a little dazed. For that man, her feelings were very complicated. She liked him, and she admired him, but she didn't know whether she liked him more or admired him more. The only thing she knew was that the man already had a family, and he even had a child. Therefore, she suppressed this feeling in her heart and tried her best to keep a distance between herself and that man. She was already 28 years old, and she was no longer an innocent little girl like Lin Wan who easily fell in love. Therefore, she knew that love didn't need to be said out loud. She only needed to silently protect this precious thing in her heart. Of course, perhaps even she didn't know that there was only one woman in that man's heart. Even if he walked through a field of flowers, not a single leaf would touch him. Swoosh, the two of them quickly went ashore. After looking around, they were about to hide in the dense forest and find an exit to leave. However, at this moment, a giant eagle suddenly flew over the two of them. The giant eagle looked down in a gliding posture. After noticing the two of them, it suddenly cried out. Oh no! Li Ying's pretty face instantly changed, and she cried out, We've been exposed. Quick, let's go. She recognized that eagle. It was a ghost falcon that the Japanese yin-yang masters specially raised. It loved to eat souls. Although it wasn't aggressive, it could see thousands of feet away and was extremely good at tracking. As her voice fell, Lin Wan also panicked. She held onto the former tightly and was about to rush into the dense forest at the side. However, a few auras suddenly jumped out from the forest, followed by a mocking laugh. Go? Go where? The people who came were ninjas covered in black samurai clothes, revealing only a pair of eyes. 4 jonins. Seeing this scene, Li Ying's expression changed drastically. She turned her head and was about to turn around. However, as soon as she turned around, several people rushed over from all directions. There were a total of 10 jonins. Every single one of them was comparable to an Emperor Realm cultivator. Li Ying and Lin Wan's hearts sank, especially Lin Wan. She was so scared that her body was trembling, but she still didn't make a sound. The ghost falcon from before descended at a low altitude and finally landed on a man with a handlebar mustache. The man took a step forward and looked at the two women with a faint smile. "Miss Lee, you really made it hard for us to find you." The other party took out an urn, and the ghost falcon pecked at the urn, swallowing a soul into its stomach. Li Ying's eyes widened in anger. "Xiao Dong's soul. Qingmu, how dare you feed Xiao Dong's soul to a beast?" She recognized the soul. It was the soul of Wei Xiaodong, a member of the Dragon King Palace. Like Lin Wan, he was also a newcomer who had just joined the Dragon King Palace. Who would have thought that even after death, he would still end up like this? "There's no need to be angry, Miss Li." Qing Mu licked his lips and said with a sinister smile, "If you can't bear to part with him, we can send you to reunite with him after we're done playing with you." At this point, his gaze landed on Lin Wan. "I can smell the scent of a virgin. Your soul must be very delicious." Lin Wan gripped Liang tightly in fear. "Dream on." Liang smirked coldly. "Even if we die, we won't let you guys off easy. After this, when China pursues the matter, the Japanese won't be able to escape the blame." She turned around and looked at Lin Wan pitifully. She caressed her cheek and said with a sobbing tone, "Wanner, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I won't be able to bring you back to China safely." "Sister, it's okay." Lin Wan smiled weakly. "My biggest dream is to see the palace master coming to save us on the seven-colored cloud. I'm afraid it won't come true. But I'm not afraid of death." Determination flashed across the girl's eyes. She then reached out and slapped the top of her head. Just as her hand was about to land on the top of her head, she suddenly felt that she couldn't move her hand, as if an extremely gentle force had locked onto her. Rumble, a clap of thunder suddenly rang out in the clear sky. The girl looked up instinctively. A large patch of dark clouds rolled in from the horizon. There seemed to be lightning in the clouds, as if a storm was brewing. This sudden change also shocked Liang, Qing Mu and the rest, causing everyone to raise their heads in shock. Not only them, but all the powerful cultivators within the range of Turtle Mountain also felt the intense pressure from the sky. "Is it the palace master?" An unconcealable ecstasy immediately appeared on Li Ying's originally despairing face. "Palace master?" Lin Wan pursed her lips and stared at the approaching thunderclouds with her eyes wide open. She felt that it was difficult for her to breathe. She could not believe it. The commotion was simply too shocking. Qing Mu was stunned when he heard that. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, Go quickly. Mad Southern Yi is here." However, he soon realized that he couldn't move his body at all under the pressure. The pressure was getting stronger and stronger. Plop! In the end, the 11 people, including Qing Mu, all knelt on the ground. Their hearts were filled with extreme shock. One must know that there were 10 superior-level ninjas, who were comparable to Emperor Stage cultivators and a Onmyoji with the combat strength of a quasi-saint. This combat strength was enough to sweep through the entire Nankan. However, just the pressure alone. They could not take it. Under Lin Wan and Li Ying's dumbfounded gazes, the thundercloud slowly descended and revealed a skinny silhouette. The figure's long hair fluttered in the wind as he descended from the sky step by step, landing beside Lin Wan. Then, a calm voice slowly came out of his mouth. "Little girl, I came in a hurry, so I can't step on the 7-colored cloud. However, are you satisfied with this thundercloud? Are you the palace master?" Lin Wan said in a daze. At that moment, she still felt like she was dreaming. Before Yi Chen could speak, Liang knelt on one knee. "The Deputy Palace Master of the Dragon King Palace, Liang, welcomes you, Palace Master. I'm late." Yi Chen lifted his hand and helped her up. He noticed the injury on her arm and grabbed through the air. The spiritual energy from all directions gathered in his hand. Whoosh! A curtain of spiritual energy rain appeared out of thin air and landed on Li Ying's injured arm. Her wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Liang knelt down again and could not help but cry, Palace Master, you must save old Yen and the rest. Chapter 10:17. I already know about this. There's no need to say anything more. Yi Chen squinted and lifted his head to look at Qing Mu and the rest who were crawling on the ground. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. Japanese? Under such killing intent, Qing Mu's lips trembled as he said, Mad Southern Yi, I'm Qing Mu under the Japanese Divine Wood Divine Priest. How dare you kill me? Bang! Before he could finish, Yi Chen slapped him into the ground. You're too noisy! When the remaining 10 jonin saw this scene, they were so scared that they almost peed their pants. They were so shocked that they wanted to die. A yin-yang master who was comparable to a quasi-saint was killed by him so easily. It was obvious that the outside world had underestimated Yi Chen's combat ability. All of you deserve to die too. Yi Chen glanced at the 10 of them coldly. A dark gleam flashed, and a soul flag appeared in his hand. Today I'll seal a soul for every person I kill. I'll make sure that none of you can reincarnate. He stretched out his hand and forcefully extracted the souls of the 10 people and sealed them in the soul flag. Palace Master is so powerful. Lin Wan was so shocked that she could not say a word after witnessing everything with her own eyes. One had to know that she was only a level 7 mutant, and her battle prowess was at most at the Emperor stage. Following the death of Qing Mu and the rest, the Ghost Falcon cried out and plunged into the ground, trembling. Ghost Falcon? Yi Chen only noticed its existence then. Liang cried, Palace Master, the souls of some members of the Dragon King Palace were devoured by it. Yi Chen grabbed the Ghost Falcon with one hand when he heard that. He broke through its sea of soul directly and several souls shot out. They were the souls of Wei Xiaodong and the rest. You guys died for the country. You shouldn't end up like this. Yi Chen took them all and sighed softly. After this, I'll personally cast a spell to bring you guys back to reincarnation. I'll bury your bodies in the Loyalty Temple in the Dragon King Palace. In this world, people were born and people died. He did not have 3 heads and 6 arms, nor was he omniscient. It was impossible for him to take care of everyone. As for now, it's time to repay the debt of blood. Yi Chen squinted as extreme killing intent flickered in his eyes. I'll sacrifice you guys with more than 100 times the number of people. Palace Master, you must be careful. Although the god on Mount Olympus has gone back, he can come back at any time, Liang said worriedly. Inside Turtle Mountain. At this moment, a dense crowd had gathered. As far as the eye could see, every figure had an extraordinary aura, and there was no lack of beast kings and quasi-saints among them. Almost as soon as Yi Chen arrived at Turtle Mountain on the thundercloud, the earth-shattering scene attracted everyone's attention. Where did this phenomenon come from? Is Turtle Mountain going to change again? Why do I feel like there was someone on that thundercloud just now? Impossible. Only the deities of the Holy Mountain or the angels of the Vatican can cause such a phenomenon. Wang Chang's eyes widened. As the crowd discussed, they did not stop and continued to go deeper into Turtle Mountain to search for the supreme holy medicine. At the top of Turtle Mountain, there were more than 10 figures with powerful auras. Among them was an old man in a divine robe, a woman with fiery red hair, and a beast king with a tiger's body. After a long while, a man in a golden robe said, Sir Divine Wood, did you see the phenomenon just now? The Sir Divine Wood he was talking about was an old man covered in a burgundy divine robe not far away. The old man held a cane in his hand, and his face was dignified without being angry. He looked like a high and mighty god. The old man lifted his head to look at the sky, and a bright light flashed in the depths of his turbid eyes. It's too fast. I can't see it clearly. I think it's a phenomenon caused by the magnetic field here. In reality, such phenomena had been common in various countries ever since the spiritual energy recovery. As time passed, they had gotten used to it. I hope so. The man in the golden robe frowned slightly. For some reason, he had an uneasy feeling. In my opinion, it might not be an ordinary phenomenon. At that moment, a white-haired old man in red chuckled. This thundercloud came from the east. It's very likely that a saint from China has arrived. At this point, he glanced at the great divine wood, the man in the golden robe, and the beast king with a tiger's head and a human's body. The three of them represented Japan, India, and Mount Olympus. They were also the three of them who had openly suppressed the people of China. That was why he had threatened the three of them. The rest also had a faint smile on their faces. Do you think there are saints in the East? The man in the golden robe chuckled, as if he was disdainful. If there are, Mad Southern Yi is the most likely. At this point, he shook his head and said, however, the spy I arranged in China has just sent news that Mad Southern Yi seems to have been injured in a secret realm in China. He's currently recuperating in seclusion. Mad Southern Yi is injured? It was everyone's turn to be surprised. After all, Yi Chen's combat power in China was obvious to all. How could someone injure him? Even so, Mad Southern Yi will recover one day. In my opinion, it's best if you release all the Chinese people you captured. A bodhisattva from the Thai royal family put his palms together and swept his compassionate gaze across the 6 Chinese martial artists hanging on the tree in the distance. Release them? The beast king with a tiger's head and a human's body cackled. You guys are afraid of Mad Southern Yi, but Mount Olympus is not. As long as he dares to come, the god of Mount Olympus will definitely descend. As soon as that was said, the others were shocked. It could be said that on Earth today, other than Mount Olympus, the most terrifying force was the Vatican. They did have the right to be proud. However, at that moment, an extreme killing intent suddenly swept over from the northwest. This killing intent almost caused the expressions of the dozen or so people present to change. What a powerful killing intent! The great divine would suddenly opened his eyes. Could it be that a saint has descended? The others also had solemn expressions. Before they could think too much about it, several black figures flew over from the eastern horizon. Black energy surged above the black figures, like black dragons circling around them. The expression of the Vatican's cardinal changed drastically. What an evil aura! The Vatican had always preached in the human world as God's messengers. They believed in light, so they were naturally the most sensitive to evil aura. Only after the black silhouettes entered did everyone realize that they were 4 men in black armor. They were escorting an eastern chariot that was being pulled by 9 warhorses in front of the chariot. Boom! Immediately after, a huge bat suddenly rose into the sky from the east. It flapped its wings and attacked the black figures first. Many people could not help but be shocked when they saw that. It's a prince from the Bloodling Demon Banquet Alliance of England. Chapter 10:18. The Blood Clan was a vampire family. It was said that Cain, the ancestor of the Blood Clan, was one of the 2 sons of Adam and his wife Eve. Cain was jealous of his younger brother Abel and killed him. God punished him by turning him into a vampire. There were 13 clans in the Blood Clan. It was said that they were founded by Cain's 13 descendants. These 13 clans were divided into 3 alliances because of their different ideologies. They were the Secret Alliance, the Demonic Feast Alliance, and the Neutral Alliance. The Secret Alliance followed the ancient teachings and felt that the Blood Clan should not appear in the human world and even affect people's lives. On the other hand, the Demonic Feast Alliance saw humans as food. They appeared in the human world and used the embrace to reproduce and disrupt the order of the human world. The Blood Clan's strength was divided according to the Duke, Marquis, Earl, and Junior. Above the Duke was the Prince, whose combat strength was comparable to a demi-saint. The Blood Tribe Grand Prince's attack immediately attracted the attention of many people. However, what shocked them was that the carriage in the sky did not stop in the face of the Blood Clan's prince's attack. Rumble! In the next moment, a black jade coffin suddenly shot out from within the carriage. As the lid of the coffin was lifted, a man in a black dragon robe shot out from the coffin. Roar! The man in the black dragon robe roared into the sky, revealing two blood-colored fangs. Monstrous corpse energy mixed with boundless emperor's might shook the world. The vampire prince's expression changed drastically. Blood flowed from his 7 orifices, and he actually turned around to flee. However, a pair of sky-covering bone wings suddenly appeared behind the black-robed man's loose dragon robe. As the bone wings flapped, the Blood Clan's prince was caught up in the blink of an eye. Roar! The Blood Clan's prince also roared in anger. 2 fangs appeared at the corner of his mouth, as if to threaten. However, to his horror, the Asian man in front of him had longer fangs that pierced directly into his neck. Gulp, gulp! Under everyone's gaze, the Blood Clan's prince's body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, he turned into a bat and fell to the ground. Is this the Blood Clan? Ing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His red eyes flickered nonstop. I tasted whiskey. Women, money, power, it's intoxicating. Dead silence. The world was dead silent. Everyone stared blankly at this scene. The Eastern zombie that had suddenly descended had bitten a Western blood tribe prince, instead, too strong. That was insane. Ing slowly looked at the great divine wood divine priest and the others on the ground. His gaze paused for a few seconds on the 6 people of Hua Nation who were hung on the tree. Then, his eyes became extremely red again. You insulted the people of Huaxia? How dare you insult my descendants? In the next moment, the bone wings on his body swept across the sky, and he directly flew towards the great divine priest Divine Wood and the others. Demon! The Cardinal of the Vatican City held the cross of holy light in his hand and said in a trembling voice, "Accept the judgment of the Lord." Master? Ing smiled indifferently. If your master is still alive, I don't mind absorbing him and making him carry my coffin. Op was shocked to discover that the cross of holy light that the omnipotent Lord had bestowed upon him was able to expel all evil, but it was completely useless against this Eastern zombie. Roar! Ing let out another long roar. He bared his fangs and grabbed at Op with his right hand that was like a dragon's claw. At that moment a faint voice rang out, "Get lost. I don't need you to attack my enemy." As the voice faded, Ying's arm froze. Ying's arm suddenly stiffened. He then looked to the northwest and saw several figures walking through the air towards him. The leader was none other than Yi Chen. Mad Southern Yi. It's Mad Southern Yi from China. As Yi Chen got closer and closer, an uproar broke out between heaven and earth. The great divine wood divine priest of Japan, the man in the golden robe from India, and the beast king with a tiger head and a human body changed their expressions. Mad Southern Yi was here. Didn't he say that he was recuperating in closed-door cultivation? Then, everyone saw another shocking scene. The Eastern zombie before them was not angry after hearing Yi Chen's arrogant words. Instead, he smiled. I was right. You and I are the same kind of person. Since ancient times, emperors were emotionless. When an emperor was angry, he could slaughter all living beings and leave millions of corpses. On the other hand, he could benefit all living beings. Yi Chen looked at Ing. I'm surprised that you're here. It seems like I was right to sit back and watch you break the seal. His first impression of Ing, the first emperor's evil body, was that he was crazy and even arrogant. However, as he interacted more, his impression of him changed quite a bit. At the very least, he knew that the Chinese were here to save this place. Since you don't like me interfering, I'll leave them to you, Ing said slowly with a calm expression. Then, he spread his wings and returned to the carriage in the sky. He said indifferently, "Let's go." Qin Jian and the other 3 stood up and protected the carriage as they charged into the west without hesitation. An indifferent voice faintly came from heaven and earth. I once unified the 6 countries. Today, I'd like to see how powerful the so-called United States, England, and Japan are. What is he doing? Could it be that he wants to conquer the West with just the 4 of them? Lunatic, this Eastern zombie must be a lunatic. He'll definitely be killed by God. Everyone was shocked when they saw that. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Yi Chen was shocked. However, he then retracted his gaze and looked at the 6 Chinese hanging on the tree. He formed hand seals with both hands, and a golden pagoda shot out from between his brows. The golden pagoda soared into the sky and directly stored the 6 of them inside. The tiger-headed beast king from Mount Olympus was furious. Mad Southern Yi, how dare you? However, Yi Chen ignored him at all. He took a step forward, and a red bolt of lightning shot at the other party as thunder rumbled. Rumble, as an earth-shattering boom rang out, the Beast King immediately screamed and spat out blood. Its body collapsed. A soul flew out as if it wanted to escape. However, Yi Chen put it away into the soul flag in an instant. This scene happened extremely quickly, and when everyone reacted, there was only a thick layer of shock on their faces. That was a Beast King. However, it was killed just like that? The world fell silent at this moment. The great divine wood priest and the man in golden robes from India, who were about to attack, were horrified. Yi Chen did not give them a chance to escape at all. He walked toward the 2 of them directly. He was not fast, but every step he took was shocking. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were as cold as 2 heavenly swords. He seemed to have transformed into a peerless demon. "Ope, save us, save us!" The great divine wood priest and the man in golden robes were scared out of their wits. They repeatedly asked the Vatican's cardinal for help. Yi Chen's combat ability had exceeded everyone's imagination. His combat ability was comparable to the 12 gods on Mount Olympus. The Cardinal Ope was also shocked. After hesitating for a moment, he was about to stand up and plead for them. "They killed my people and humiliated my people. They must die. Those who save them will be punished as well." Yi Chen stared at him with killing intent on his face. His gaze was soul-piercing. "Do you want to die? P.S. Chapter 4 has been updated today. Please give me monthly vote." Chapter 10:19. They killed my people and humiliated my people. They must die. Those who save them will be punished as well. Do you want to die? Yi Chen looked straight at the Vatican's red-robed Archbishop, Off. The terrifying killing intent made Offa's heart tremble. He had no doubt that Yi Chen would really dare to kill him. However, who was Off? He was the Vatican's red-robed Archbishop. His status was only below the Pope, and countless believers treated him as a god. If he backed down today, not only would his influence in Europe plummet, even the Vatican would not tolerate him. Thinking to this point, he took a deep breath in and said with a grim expression, "Your Excellency Mad Southern Yi, perhaps you don't know who I am. I'm the Vatican's red-robed Archbishop, Off. I hope that you'll do me a favor today. You're courting death." Yi Chen's eyes flashed as he lifted his right hand and pointed at the former. In the blink of an eye, heaven and earth rumbled. A huge finger suddenly condensed in the air and charged at the former with a monstrous pressure. Offa's expression changed drastically. A holy light staff suddenly appeared in his hand and blocked in front of him. "I don't care. The Vatican won't care about this anymore." He did not expect Yi Chen to dare to attack him after exposing his identity from the Vatican. After all, even the European countries were afraid of the existence of the Roman Curia. Rumble! The huge finger landed on Offa's body with a whistling sound. The power seemed to shake the entire Turtle Mountain. Blood mist exploded in the air. Under everyone's gazes, red-robed Archbishop Aopu's holy light staff crumbled with a loud bang. His body crumbled along with it, and even his soul was destroyed in this world. There was only the pungent smell of blood left in the air. Dead silence. The world was as silent as death. Many powerhouses from other countries watched this scene in fear. They felt like their minds were buzzing. Killing the red-robed Archbishop was like killing a chicken. He even ignored the existence of the Vatican. Was this how domineering Mad Southern Yi was in China? Yi Chen turned around and looked at the great divine priest Divine Wood and the man in gold. Then, he walked step by step. The great divine priest of Divine Wood and the man in the golden robe of India who witnessed this scene were even more horrified. The two of them flew into the sky without even thinking about it. Clearly, they were scared out of their wits by Yi Chen and wanted to escape. However, as soon as the two of them rose into the air, two terrifying auras descended from the sky. At the same time, Patriarch Yellow Spring's voice rang out, "You two bastards, where do you think you're going? Get lost." Boom! The great divine wood divine priest and the golden-robed man from India were smashed to the ground on the spot. Behind them, they watched in horror as several figures appeared in the sky. It was the Patriarch of Hell, Yi Wushuang, Luo Tianya, and the others who had rushed over. The sudden arrival of these people once again caused the atmosphere at the scene to become oppressive to the extreme. For a moment, no one dared to speak. India's golden-clad man transformed into a giant lion and said in fear, "Mad Southern Yi, I'm the disciple of India's golden lion holy beast. You can't kill me." As soon as these words came out, many people revealed shocked expressions. Golden Lion King. That was India's #1 expert. It was said that the number of people in the world who could fight against him could be counted on two hands. Even the Pope of the Church had to address him as an equal. At that moment, a purple sword gleam slashed over and cut the man's body in half on the spot. A golden pearl flew out of his body. Yi Chen waved his right hand and grabbed him from afar, not giving him a chance to escape. He stretched out his hand and wiped away the man's consciousness completely. Then, he tossed it to the Patriarch of Hell. "Take it and refine pills." The Patriarch of Hell took the soul pill from him with a smile and said, "This is good. It should be able to refine golden core spirit pills." The surroundings were dead silent. Everyone held their breaths as they watched this scene, their eyes filled with fear. Using the Beast King's soul pill to refine pills? Before this, no one dared to think that only Yi Chen could say such a domineering thing. Many people from other countries rejoiced when they thought to this point. They were glad that they did not target the Chinese in the beginning. The most typical example was the Buddhist bodhisattva from the Thai royal family. He knew very well that if he were like the few people before him, his relic would probably be used to refine pills. Yi Chen turned around and looked at the remaining great divine priest Shin Mu calmly. "Do you know why I left you until the end? I'll fight you to the death." The great divine priest Shin Mu roared and charged at Yi Chen. Long live the emperor! His eyes were bloodshot, and his mind was trembling. Then, he burned his soul crazily in exchange for an increase in his power. Emperor? A hint of mockery appeared at the corner of Yi Chen's lips. A country that even the emperor is a mere figurehead. How dare you swear loyalty to the emperor? With that, he reached out and grabbed the great divine priest Shin Mu's neck. Then, he forcefully crippled his cultivation base. He ignored the man's screams and extracted his soul and sealed it in the soul flag. The surroundings were dead silent. Ever since Yi Chen appeared and killed the Beast King on Mount Olympus, he killed the great divine priest Shin Mu and the Golden Lion King of India. It was done in practically an instant, but it completely stunned everyone and brought them extreme shock. Mad Southern Yi from China. That was Mad Southern Yi from China. Yi Chen turned around slightly and glanced at everyone calmly. He then said calmly, "Kill anyone who isn't Chinese within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." His voice was neither loud nor soft, but it was like thunder. It reverberated through every corner of the Turtle Mountain. As soon as he said that, everyone present was shocked at first, and then some were furious. Yi Chen's words were too overbearing. Turtle Mountain did not belong to China. Moreover, everyone was here to obtain the female corpse in the ice coffin. Why would Yi Chen chase them away? A werewolf stood out from the crowd and said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency Mad Southern Yi, aren't you being too overbearing?" "So what?" Yi Chen said noncommittally, I've always been like this in my life. Those who don't submit to me are dead. You're indeed very powerful, but don't forget that you're still a human, not a god. The werewolf was furious and snorted coldly. Everyone here today is a powerhouse from various countries. Do you dare to kill us all? Your Excellency Hall is right. Another blood-breed prince said, if you dare to kill us, it's equivalent to making the entire world your enemy. Not only will you not be able to bear it, even China behind you won't be able to bear it. As the two of them echoed each other, many people's eyes flickered. The werewolf was extremely pleased with himself as he said again, Mad Southern Yi, if you know what's good for you, whoosh, before he could finish, he suddenly stopped. Then, he lowered his head with difficulty and looked at his pierced heart in disbelief. End of this chapter. Chapter 10:20. Plop. The werewolf fell heavily to the ground and died on the spot. This sudden scene completely stunned everyone, and after a few seconds, the sky was filled with an uproar. Did Yi Chen really dare to kill all of them here? Wasn't he afraid of offending the Western countries? Who do I want to kill? Since when do I need to consider the international impact? If the international community doesn't submit to me, I'll slaughter all of you. Yi Chen retracted his sword slowly and said coldly. His voice was like thunder that shook the 9 heavens. If you defy the heavens, you can survive. If you defy me, there's no way you can survive. Kill. Luo Tianya took a step forward, and the cultivation base in his body erupted as he charged at the Blood Clan member. Let's go, let's go. Mad Southern Yi is crazy. He really dares to kill us. No one knew who screamed, but it caused extreme panic. Countless people scrambled to escape in all directions. The Patriarch of Hell grinned strangely. Do we need to kill all of them here? Forget it, let them go. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. He was not afraid of offending the countries, but some of them had nothing to do with him. Within a few breaths of time, the hundreds of people present had run away. They were afraid that Yi Chen would really kill. Wow, Palace Master, you're amazing! Lin Wan, who had been stunned, finally reacted. She jogged to Yi Chen's side and looked at him while panting with a red face. Her gentle and beautiful eyes were filled with admiration. Subsequently, she grabbed Yi Chen's arm with both hands without saying anything and said pitifully, Palace Master, can you teach me cultivation? Yi Chen could not help but force a smile when he felt the softness on his arm. He wanted to push her away. At that moment, the Patriarch of Hell squeezed over and stood between the two of them. He said with a cheeky smile, Little girl, I'm more powerful. Do you want to give it a try? You're more powerful? Lin Wan was slightly stunned. She widened her beautiful eyes and looked at him. You're more powerful than the Palace Master? I'm more experienced than him, so of course I'm more powerful. The Patriarch of Hell's lecherous gaze kept wandering around her body. The little girl was confused. More experience than the Palace Master? Combat experience? If that was the case, then why was the Palace Master's reputation greater than his? Seeing that the Patriarch's old habit was acting up again, Yi Chen coughed immediately. Patriarch, don't you think you're a beast bullying a little girl at your age? Age isn't a problem, gender isn't a problem, and race isn't even a problem. The Grand Elder said indifferently. All right, let's get down to business. Yi Chen interrupted him and lifted his head to look at Liang next to him. Where's the female corpse in the ice coffin? Palace Master, there's something you don't know. Liang paused for a moment before telling the whole story. It turned out that when the oracle from Mount Olympus came to Turtle Mountain and fought with the old tortoise was injured and escaped with the female corpse in the ice coffin. The Patriarch of Yellow Spring put away the cynical look on his face and said, Fellow Taoist Yi, that God's Messenger's cultivation base is at least at the Sage realm. If the late Golden Core stage corresponded to the Sage-to-be, then the early nascent Soul stage corresponded to the Sage. He was only at the perfected Golden Core stage at the moment. If he were to fight the God's Messenger and the old tortoise, it would be hard to say. There's something I don't understand. Since the god's messenger was able to injure the old tortoise, it can be seen that his strength isn't something ordinary saints can compare to. Yi Chen frowned and said, "But if that's the case, why did he go back? After all, the female corpse in the ice coffin hasn't been found yet." Li Ying thought about it and suddenly said, "By the way, the god's messenger seemed to be injured too, but he wasn't injured by the old tortoise. Then why?" Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Yellow Spring spoke at the same time. "I don't know either." Li Ying shook her head and said in a daze, "At that time, the god's messenger charged into Turtle Mountain and fought with the old tortoise. Then, we saw a white beam of light shooting into the sky. Then, the god's messenger went back. Palace Master, I saw it too. That beam of light seemed to have appeared from where the female corpse in the ice coffin landed," Lin Wan recalled. Yi Chen said decisively, "Bring me there to take a look." In the hinterland of Turtle Mountain, a lake that was 300 meters wide stood in the center. However, there was no water in the man-made lake at the moment, as if it had dried up. Li Ying led Yi Chen to the lake and pointed at it before her. "Palace Master, it's here." Yi Chen lifted his head and looked over. He saw that the lake before him had already dried up. The bottom was still filled with scorched earth. Even the ground under his feet was red. "Zombie!" The Patriarch of Yellow Spring also noticed this, and could not help but say, "Could it be that the female corpse has already become the body of a drought demon, and that's why the land is red?" "No." Yi Chen shook his head and said, "It seems like the temperature was too high after the ice coffin descended. That's why all the water in this lake evaporated. If it's a zombie, why isn't there any corpse energy?" At this point, his eyes flickered. "If I'm not mistaken, there were many animals living in this lake, such as tortoises. I understand now. In other words, that old tortoise's strength increased because of the female corpse in the ice coffin." The Patriarch of Yellow Spring immediately came to a realization and said with great interest, "Looks like there are many secrets on that female corpse in the ice coffin." "Palace Master, where are we going to find her now?" Li Ying said with a frown. At this moment, a layer of soil 3,000 meters away suddenly trembled a few times. Then, a red tortoise's head popped out. The tortoise took a look around and retracted its head immediately when it saw Yi Chen and the rest from afar. How could that escape Yi Chen's Patriarch of Yellow Spring's divine consciousness? The two of them looked at each other and saw the smile in each other's eyes. At the next moment, the two of them leaped onto the wet ground. The Patriarch of Yellow Spring was surprised. Formation? No, it should be a spatial magic treasure. Yi Chen touched the ground lightly with his hand, and felt the water's spiritual energy in the wet soil. He could not help but laugh and say, "Interesting. I almost fooled the two of us." Thinking to this point, he could not help but say slowly, "Fellow, we have no ill intentions towards you. We're only here for the female corpse in the ice coffin. Please show yourself." Rumble, subsequently, under Li Ying and Lin Wan's incredulous gazes, the ground they were standing on began to shake violently. The shaking was getting stronger and stronger, as if something was leaving the ground. Yi Chen waved his sleeve and swept the two women into the air. He looked down at the ground from above. A blue water ball broke out of the ground. The water ball was about 300 meters wide, and one could vaguely see flowing river water and houses inside. From afar, it looked like a city on water. As a hole appeared on the water ball, a flight of stairs condensed from water appeared. An old man carrying a tortoise shell on his back walked out shakily and said politely, "Your Excellency, Mad Southern Yi, my ancestor invites you in. P.S. There are only 2 chapters left today. I went to practice driving and came back very late. I don't have enough time to write much. Please forgive me. I'll update as much as I can." End of this chapter. Chapter 10:21. In the hinterland of Turtle Mountain. As the gigantic blue water ball appeared, Li Ying and Lin Wan were completely stunned. To them, the gigantic water ball before them was a gift from the heavens. The rivers and ancient palaces inside were like a paradise on earth. Yi Chun glanced at the shelled old man who walked out of the water ball. He was about to walk over with a faint smile. Li Ying reminded him immediately, "Palace Master, be careful." She knew very well that the old turtle's combat strength was terrifying. Even the god's messenger on Mount Olympus could not kill it. Now that Yi Chun was here for the female corpse in the ice coffin, he took the initiative to invite Yi Chun in instead. He was probably up to no good. "Don't worry." Yi Chun waved his hand nonchalantly. He took a step out and led everyone into the gigantic blue water ball. What greeted everyone's eyes was a huge underwater world. Fish were swimming, corals were green, and there were beautiful buildings. It was indeed a paradise in the water. The shelled old turtle eventually led the group to an ancient palace. There were many turtles wandering outside the palace, looking at them in respect. The shelled old man chased the turtles away and bowed slightly. "Your Excellency, Mad Southern Yi, my ancestor only wants to see you." After saying that, he glanced at the Patriarch of Hell, Li Ying, and the rest with a troubled expression. He wanted to say something but hesitated. "What? Are you looking down on me?" the Patriarch of Hell said in annoyance. The shelled old man was sweating profusely, and "No. Just wait for me outside," Yi Chun said and pushed open the palace's door. He lifted his feet and walked in. The palace was not big, and there were many black tortoise golden pillars. There was a lake at the end of the hall. The lake was emitting intense heat as if the lake was boiling. There was a small island in the middle of the lake. At that moment there was an old purple turtle that was about 3 meters long on the island. The old turtle's neck was stretched out. It was motionless and had no aura at all, as if it was dead. If one took a closer look, they would notice that there were many cracks on its shell. At that moment an extremely old voice came from its mouth. "Immortal Yi, you're here. I can't welcome you due to my severe injuries. Please forgive me." Yi Chun was not bothered. He took a step forward and landed on the small island. Subsequently, he realized that the entire island was extremely hot. It was like a rock in magma. His eyes flickered a few times and then he suddenly said, "You are using the magma under this island to heal your injuries?" "Yes, Immortal Yi." The old tortoise looked up with difficulty and spoke in human language. "I was injured by the wand of the Oracle of Mount Olympus. Divine power entered my body and my internal organs are like ice. I can only feel better with the help of this heat." Reaching there, he continued, "I'm the Spirit Turtle Saint. I've been cultivating here for 1,300 years." His Mandarin was very clear, and there was even a hint of a Minnan accent mixed in. It was as if he was a native of Minnan. "You've lived in China before?" Yi Chun was surprised. Old Tortoise smiled faintly. "You may not know this, Immortal Yi, but I've been living in Hua Nation since 1,300 years ago. Later on, due to the great changes in the world and the disaster that it brought, I had no choice but to move here with my descendant. 1,300 years ago. That was around the Tang dynasty." Yi Chun nodded lightly and changed the topic. "Since you know that I'm here for the female corpse in the ice coffin, why did you let me in?" At this point, he looked at the injuries on his body with a faint smile. "You have to know that you can't resist me at all. Because I know that even if I don't let you in, you'll fight your way in." The old tortoise looked around and sighed softly. "This magic treasure of mine can't withstand Immortal Yi's divine might. Since that's the case, why should I resist stubbornly?" He had also seen the scene of Yi Chun killing in the outside world earlier. Coupled with the fact that he was severely injured, he had no intention of resisting at all. "You're quite sensible." He then went straight to the point. "Give me the female corpse in the ice coffin. I believe you know that even if I don't do anything, you won't be able to protect her." He was telling the truth. A single oracle from Mount Olympus could injure him, let alone the Vatican and other saints. "I know that. Please follow me, Immortal Yi." The old tortoise nodded slightly and turned around with difficulty. He crawled toward the center of the island. He crawled very slowly, so slowly that people wanted to carry him. Yi Chen followed him patiently and did not rush him. Over 10 minutes later, Yi Chen arrived at the center of the island. An extreme heat assaulted his face. Under such heat, it seemed like the entire island was about to melt. Even the magic treasure space was distorted. In the distance, there was a transparent coffin that seemed to be made of crystal standing there quietly. The coffin was covered in cold air, but there was still heat coming from it. A woman in white lay in the coffin. The woman's hands fell in front of her chest. She wore a phoenix crown and a red cape. Her facial features were beautiful, and her skin was like jade. However, there was a hint of redness mixed with it, just like a lychee. She was peerless. The old tortoise knelt respectfully in front of the ice coffin and kowtowed to the female corpse in the coffin a few times. Yi Chen took a step forward and placed his hand on the coffin lid by instinct. Unexpectedly, there was a series of sizzling sounds as soon as his hand touched the coffin lid. Then, two completely different forces invaded his body, destroying his limbs and bones in a frenzy. What domineering yang energy and cold energy! Shock flashed through Yi Chen's eyes after he dissolved the two forces. Cold and heat intersect. You actually know how to use yin and yang energy to protect yourself. Since ancient times, after a person died, there was a time limit for the corpse to stay fresh. No matter how powerful a person was when they were alive, they could at most maintain a golden body that did not rot. This coffin is extraordinary. There are yin and yang energy alternating on it. Even I can't withstand these two extreme energies, the old tortoise said confidently. Yi Chen looked around the transparent coffin and said while deep in thought, "Did anything happen after she descended?" "Yes." The old tortoise immediately said, "After the Moon Palace's lady descended, the spiritual energy in our Turtle Mountain increased exponentially. Our spiritual essence was like a flood, and there was even a trace of spiritual opportunity." He said with mixed feelings, "I made use of this opportunity to become a saint." As the saying went, disaster was a blessing in disguise, and a blessing in disguise. He became a saint because of the arrival of the ice coffin. At the same time, it also brought Turtle Mountain to the attention of the entire world, resulting in today's ending. "That's interesting." Yi Chen nodded with interest. Subsequently, he flicked his finger and a medicinal pill shot at the old tortoise. "I'll take this coffin away. Take this pill as your reward. It can help you recover from your injuries. After I leave, you can announce to the public that I took it away. That way, your Turtle Mountain might be spared." End of chapter. Chapter 1022. On November 12, 2019, China's mad Southern Yi arrived at Myanmar's Turtle Mountain. First, he killed the Mount Olympus Beast King, Percy. Then, he killed the church's red-robed Archbishop Oppo. After that, he killed the Japanese Divine Wood Great Priest and the disciple of the Indian Golden Lion King, Walker. The female corpse in the ice coffin finally fell into his hands. When the news got out, the whole world was in an uproar. The country that was the most shocked and excited was none other than China. "Oh my God, Mad Southern Yi actually did this." One must know that the few people who died in his hands were powerhouses of the current era, as expected of the number one person in China. Previously, those foreign grandsons were still clamoring on the internet. Now, Mad Southern Yi has killed many of their powerhouses as soon as he attacked. On this day, countless Chinese people laughed and beamed with joy. They felt extremely carefree. Who knew how many foreign experts had been provoking them previously, which made them sullen for a long time, and they were very angry. On the other hand, Yi Chen's action not only helped them vent their anger, but he also announced the power of the Chinese cultivation world once again. Good kill, good kill. Now I want to see if those bastards still have their previous sense of superiority. Ha ha, I think many Western beast kings are scared to death, especially the one who provoked Mad Southern Yi on the internet last time. He's really invincible. Mad Southern Ye's series of actions is enough to intimidate the Western countries. Let's see if they still dare to look down on us. Compared to the uproar in China, the countries including Japan and India were silent. Yi Chen's massacre of the beasts in China and the 10 blessed grotto heavens was limited to China. To him, it was just an internal conflict. However, the people who died in Yi Chen's hands were all powerhouses from various countries. There was no lack of Mount Olympus, the Vatican, and even Japan and India. Yi Chen's action was no different from looking down on the countries, sacred grounds, and secret zones. It was no different from declaring war on the world. In an extremely ancient palace in India, several high-ranking officials of India were waiting patiently outside the door, as if they were waiting to pay their respects to an extremely honorable person. After a while, a woman in a holy robe gently opened the door and looked at the people outside expressionlessly. The Beast King only has one thing to say. China must give an explanation for Senior Brother Walker's death. Otherwise, he doesn't mind staining China with blood. Yes. The people outside the door were shocked. No one dared to object. In Japan, inside a shrine shrouded in black fog, countless white-robed yin-yang masters prostrated respectfully on the ground, their faces filled with fear and trepidation. At this moment, incomparably sorrowful cries could be heard. When the crying stopped, an extremely cold voice resounded in everyone's mind. Within 3 days, I want to see 49 Chinese girls buried here with my big brother. Rome, Vatican City, Holy See. A white-haired old man dressed in a royal robe stood in the church, facing the cross and holding the Bible in his hand. He seemed to be praying. The heretics have appeared. Lord, please give your most loyal servant instructions. At the top of the hall, above the crucifixion of Jesus, a ray of holy light slowly bloomed, as if it was guiding them. My Lord, your most loyal servant understands. The white-haired old man slowly put down the Bible and turned to the people kneeling behind him. Lewis, Schiller, Oliver, please follow the guidance of the Lord. In the name of God the Father, lead the knights to the east and kill the heretic. My Lord is merciful. The 3 red-robed archbishops answered and stood up. Greece, Mount Olympus. A god bathed in divine light walked out of the holy mountain. Divine light floated in the world. Anyone who blasphemes the gods will go to hell. Tiannan, China, Star Group. In an intricate laboratory, an ice coffin was placed on an intricate instrument. Soon, a woman wearing a mask and gloves walked to Yi Chen. Mr. Yi, thank you for your cooperation. We're done with the test. What's the result? Yi Chen smiled wryly. The person in front of him and the people she brought were from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. They strongly requested to study the female corpse in the ice coffin, so they had been working on it until now. The woman took off her mask and revealed a delicate face. Unfortunately, we used the world's top technology, but we couldn't open the coffin lid. I hope Mr. Yi can keep this item well. She bowed to Yi Chen after saying that. She sorted out the data and left the laboratory with her team. Yi Chen smiled lightly. In reality, he had already guessed this outcome. Subsequently, he walked to the ice coffin and quietly sized up the woman in the coffin. He secretly sensed if there were any signs of life fluctuations in her body. As an impatient voice sounded in the air, the Patriarch of Hell's figure appeared like a ghost. Fellow Yi, how is it? They didn't find anything. Yi Chen chuckled softly. Then, he placed his hand on the coffin lid, ignoring the yin and yang energy's invasion. Looks like I'll have to use my own method. As he exerted force with his arm, a dazzling light suddenly bloomed from the transparent coffin lid. The power made Yi Chen's expression change. What powerful nuclear radiation! The Patriarch of Hell's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly raised his hand and set up a barrier to prevent the nuclear radiation from spreading to ordinary people. This radiation is enough to destroy a county. Yi Chen was shocked as well. He mumbled, "Looks like this coffin lid contains terrifying nuclear radiation." Caw-caw with a crisp sound, The coffin lid was finally opened, and the woman in the coffin was completely exposed to the air. Fellow Yi, look. The Patriarch of Hell looked at the woman in the coffin in shock. After coming into contact with the air, the skin on her face quickly turned red. In the end, she was no different from a living person. The only difference was that the heart in her body was still motionless. Even her breathing was stagnant. Yi Chen squinted and said, "This woman is clearly dead. There's no vitality in her body at all. Why are there signs of resurrection?" The Patriarch stretched out his hand and placed it between her eyebrows. He closed his eyes and sensed it. Then, he opened his eyes and said, "Her soul has already dissipated. Even a god can't resurrect her." Yi Chen's eyes flickered a few times. Then, he extended his hand. His thumbnail grew and he gently scratched the female corpse's wrist. Sizzle, sizzle, with a burst of flames, the female corpse's wrist did not show any signs of injury at all. It seemed to be extremely hard. The Patriarch of Hell was shocked. What a powerful body! With Yi Chen's current strength and body, even the hardest diamond was like tofu to him. However, the female corpse did not show any signs of injury. Thinking to this point, the Patriarch reached out and grabbed the female corpse's wrist. He clicked his tongue in wonder. So soft, so smooth. End of this chapter. Chapter 10:23. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. It was a normal sentence, but it sounded dirty and lewd when he said it. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw the Patriarch's hands starting to get naughty. "All right, enough is enough." Yi Chen interrupted him and said while frowning, "This girl must have been extraordinary in the past. If you act rashly now and she really comes back to life, it'll be equivalent to getting yourself killed." "What should we do with this girl then?" The Patriarch of Hell smiled awkwardly and finally became obedient. Just when Yi Chen was about to speak, his phone rang. After he picked it up, Li Ying's voice came from the phone. "Palace Master, something big has happened. Old Wang wants you to come over." "All right, I'll be there right away." After hanging up the phone, he took one last look at the female corpse in the ice coffin and said, "Leave it here for now. Come with me now." "I don't want to go. You go by yourself." The Patriarch of Hell rolled his eyes and shook his head like a rattle drum. Yi Chen did not care if he was willing or not. He grabbed his hand and brought him out forcefully. He then lifted his hand to set up a barrier. Not long after he left, a timid voice sounded from outside the corridor. "Xiaohei, are you sure Daddy is here?" Outside the corridor, Meng Meng and a young man in black clothes walked toward the laboratory. The little girl widened her eyes and looked around curiously. She called out as she walked, "Daddy." "I sensed Master's aura earlier, but it seems to be gone now." Xiaohei scratched his head, a little slow. The little girl stopped in her tracks and looked at the door of the laboratory. She looked at the word laboratory and said in a crisp voice, "Lab." "Xiaohei, what's a laboratory?" The little girl was a little confused. Xiaohei shook his head and said in a low voice, "I don't know either." The little girl slapped her head and rolled her black eyes. "I'm so stupid. Won't you know once you go in and take a look?" "Xiaohei, open it for me." Upon hearing that, Xiaohei went forward and extended his hand to the lock of the laboratory door without saying anything. To him, this kind of lock could be broken with a little force. However, as soon as his hand touched it, he felt a huge force attacking him, causing him to take a few steps back uncontrollably. "Young mistress, there's a barrier." "Barrier? What is a barrier?" The little fellow was getting more and more confused. She imitated Little Black's actions and reached for the lock. Little Black's expression changed, and he subconsciously wanted to stop them, but the scene that appeared in the next moment stunned him. After the little fellow's hand came into contact with the lock, spirit power rushed over. The little fellow seemed to be a little flustered. He closed his eyes subconsciously, and his chubby little hands subconsciously formed a hand seal. Clang, the barrier was broken, and the door was wide open. Blackie was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out. The The little guy opened his eyes and saw that the door was already open. He was also a little confused. How did it open? Xiao He stared at her, dumbfounded. Could this be talent? Does Miss have talent in formations? Otherwise, how could he have broken through the barrier so carelessly? Let's go in and take a look. The little guy could not hold back his curiosity and walked into the laboratory. Blackie was worried and hurriedly followed. The laboratory was filled with all kinds of equipment. Even an uncultured person would be stunned when he entered, let alone a 5-year-old little fellow. The little fellow could not close her eyes for a while. Sometimes she touched this, sometimes she touched that. In the end, her eyes suddenly lit up. Blackie, what is that? Blackie followed her gaze and saw an ice coffin in the distance. There was a woman lying in the ice coffin. Why is there a sister sleeping in there? The little fellow became more and more curious. He could not help but walk over and looked at the woman in the coffin. Sister, my name is Yi Mengmeng. Why are you sleeping here? However, the woman in the coffin did not move at all. Sister, aren't you cold sleeping here? Are you sick? The little fellow muttered. It seemed that she wanted to put her hand in, but she was too tall to reach it. She could not help but turn around and say, Stupid Blackie, I want a hug. Only then did Blackie react. He picked her up and looked at the woman in the coffin up close. Sister, what's your name? Sister, why aren't you talking? The little fellow chattered non-stop, but the woman in the coffin did not respond. In the end, the little fellow directly stretched out his hand and pried open the woman's mouth. Sister, you, the moment the woman opened her mouth, a black bead immediately shot out from her mouth and directly entered the little fellow's mouth. Dragon King Palace Headquarters. The Japanese captured more than 50 Chinese women just to take revenge on me? The royal family of India has sent troops to our borders, and you want us to give you an explanation? The Vatican has sent 3 red-robed archbishops who are comparable to Sage to Be and the Knights Vanguard to China. Also, a god has appeared on Mount Olympus, leading many beast kings to come after me? Yi Chen seemed to be smirking as he looked at the report in his hand. Meanwhile, Li Ying and Old Wang before him looked extremely serious. Palace Master, that's not all. Li Ying took a deep breath and said, According to the latest news, India's royal family received the orders of the Beast King. India's royal family joined forces with the surrounding countries to capture many of us. There's also the god of the Seuss Fire God sect, the Beast King of the Dark Wolf clan, the Warhounds Giant of Africa, the Blood Tribes Devil Feast Alliance in Northern Europe. Old Wang sighed softly. Nearly 30 people from secret realms and holy lands have joined forces to ask China to hand you over. It can be said that you've become the world's public enemy. Yi Chen did not mind. He looked at him calmly. So, what do you plan to do with me, Old Wang? Hand me over? What are you talking about, kid? Old Master Wang glared at him angrily and scolded. If it weren't for you, more people would have died in Myanmar. Not only are you innocent, but you've also contributed to the country. How can we abandon you? At this point, he smirked coldly. India, Japan, and Mount Olympus are really shameless. They're targeting our people. It's fine if our country doesn't give them an explanation, but they're actually blaming us. Palace Master, before you came, 1 million troops had already rushed to the front line through your Sumeru flag. At the same time, among the 300,000 Chinese cultivators and 1 million mutants, 180,000 have already reached the border. Li Ying looked at Yi Chen with a burning gaze. In other words, it's up to you whether you want to fight or negotiate this battle. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Chen was shocked. No matter how shrewd he was shocked. Why are the Chinese cultivators there too? This is China. Old Wang's emotions fluctuated, and his words were sonorous. China is not afraid of war, and our Chinese martial artists dare to fight and die. End of this chapter. Chapter 10:24. As Old Wang's sonorous voice fell, he was like a sharp arrow that was about to be unsheathed. At that moment, He was like a sharp arrow that was about to be unsheathed. His gaze was as sharp as an eagle's, and his body was filled with an iron-blooded, murderous aura. Yi Chen was moved. He had never thought that China would make such a choice for him alone. He had never thought that the Chinese cultivation world would be moved by him alone. This was trust and importance. Such treatment could be considered an honor. This kind of feeling gradually set off ripples in his calm heart, and he was somewhat touched. China isn't afraid of war, huh? A Chinese martial artist dares to fight and die. The blood in Yi Chen's heart was boiling. He stood up and suddenly bowed to old Wang solemnly. How can I bear to implicate China when China brought me here? I can't bear to implicate my millions of soldiers. He took a deep breath in and said slowly, These people are here for me alone. I naturally won't let the country interfere. Moreover, the matters of the cultivation world should be resolved in the way of cultivators. You! Old Wang was furious. Liang was also stunned. She thought she had heard wrong. Those were more than 30 secret realms and holy land. Almost all the top powerhouses in the world were gathered there. Such power was enough to sweep through any country. However, Yi Chen was going to face them alone? Yi Chen smiled lightly when he met their gazes. I've long wanted to get rid of these venomous snakes that are spying on China. Now they've given me a chance. I know you guys might think that I'm crazy, or that I'm overestimating myself. Lightning surged in his eyes. These people are bullying China for not having a holy land. However, I've already prepared a great gift for them. What gift? Old Wang was confused. Yi Chen spat out 3 words, Kunlun ruins. Before the two of them could react, he walked to the window step by step with his hands behind his back. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the sky. This time, I'm going to reenact the war between the East and the West 500 years ago. I'm going to restore the glory of the great Han dynasty. I'm going to make the barbarians bow down to me and all the countries come to me. Elder Wang and Liang stared at him in a daze. They could only feel their hearts tremble, clearly shocked by his crazy idea. At that moment, a ray of sunlight shone in through the window. It happened to shine on Yi Chen. From afar, he looked like a god bathed in divine light. Old Wang, spread my words. Tell them that I'll be waiting for their arrival in China tomorrow morning. Yi Chen turned around and left after saying that. Only the two of them remained in a daze for a long time. Not long after, an extremely explosive piece of news spread throughout the world. Mad Southern Yi from China will fight a group of heroes in the Chinese Sea tomorrow morning. When the news came out, the entire world was shocked. Everyone was dumbfounded by this news, and their first reaction was disbelief. After all, it was too shocking. However, at that moment, Star Group issued a statement. Tomorrow morning, if anyone is dissatisfied, feel free to come and accept your death. I, Mad Southern Yi, am not afraid of battle. Boom! This piece of news was like a thunderclap that shook the heavens and the earth, and it swept through the entire world, causing the hearts of countless people to tremble. Crazy, crazy! The same thought appeared in everyone's mind. Mad Southern Yi was planning to fight the entire world by himself. What else could he be if he was not crazy? Almost at that moment, it seemed that Japan, India, Mount Olympus, and the Vatican had all expressed that they would arrive on time. To put it simply, killing intents almost enveloped the entire world, causing the entire world to sink into a tense atmosphere. I, Mad Southern Yi, am not afraid of battle. The Black Flood Dragon King from the Water Dragon Palace was the first to express his stance. I'm also a Chinese Demon King. How can I sit back and watch as foreign invaders run rampant? Tomorrow, the entire Water Dragon Palace will definitely arrive at the Chinese Sea. The sky-roaming Dragon King had a pivotal position among the mutated beasts. Coupled with the fact that he had been subdued by Yi Chen, he was naturally the first to support Yi Chen. As he spoke, many demon kings who had survived Yi Chen's suppression earlier expressed their stance. The Demon King from Great Rock Ridge followed closely behind and stood out. Great Rock Ridge is not afraid of battle. We, the Northeast Five Immortals, are also not afraid of battle. In the depths of the Northeast Forest, the Five Immortals, Hu, Huang, Bai, Lu, and Hui, shook the Northeast. The Jingyang Ridge Tiger Clan is not afraid of battle either. In an instant, many Chinese demon kings expressed their stance. The master of Xixian Mountain Grotto Heaven stood out and said, "Even a mere demonic beast knows what China's honor is, let alone humans? My Xixian Mountain Grotto Heaven dares to fight and die. My Crimson Mountain dares to fight and die too." The master of Crimson Mountain Grotto Heaven swept his sword across the sky and appeared domineeringly. "And me, Ju Chu Mountain. And me, Lin Wu Mountain." On the human side, the remaining 4 Grotto Heavens were not willing to fall behind either. Their killing intent soared into the sky. The Inhumans Association hereby declares that any Inhumans registered with the Inhumans Association can head to the Chinese Sea tomorrow, as long as they have a little bit of courage. The Inhumans Association's president roared, "Those without courage don't have to go. As long as you collect our corpses after the battle." Boom! It was as if such a scene had appeared all over China. It was as if a violent storm had swept across. Everyone was moving because of Yi Chen. Western Expedition, trample the Helan Mountains. Western Expedition, trample the Helan Mountains. Star Group. As soon as Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell returned, they gave more than 10 battle orders in a row. The entire Star Group was like a machine. At that moment it started operating because of Yi Chen alone. Yi Chen looked around after he sat down. "Why don't I see Meng Meng?" Meng Meng seemed to have gone to the lab to look for you earlier. Yuan handed him a cup of warm water, her eyes filled with love. This girl has been crazy with Xiao He these few days. She even brought Yang Hao from the Yang Tian family and the panda to steal the egg of a demon king. Stole the demon king's egg? Yi Chen had a strange expression on his face. That's not all. Xiao Ye also walked over with a smile. "Master, you don't know. This silly girl even went to Haishan and captured the son of the Lobster Clan's chief. She roasted the lobster in front of everyone." Yi Chen took a deep breath in. He was shocked by this girl's courage. He asked worriedly, "Is she all right?" "She's fine. The lobster she roasted was just one of the hundreds of sons of the Lobster Clan's chief." Xiao Ye covered her mouth and giggled. After that, the Lobster Clan's chief even came to apologize. He said that he did not raise his son well and dirted this girl's mouth. Yi Chen could not help but laugh. The Patriarch of Hell laughed. "Looks like Fellow Ye's battle at the sea that day has completely terrified the Sea Clan. Daddy." Just as they were talking, a crisp voice came from outside the door. Then, a figure pounced into Yi Chen's embrace. The little girl said resentfully, "Daddy, where did you go? I went to the lab earlier but I couldn't find you." "You went to the lab?" Yi Chen froze. "That's right. I even saw a sister sleeping inside. She's so beautiful." The little girl's face was filled with excitement. At that moment, a woman in white walked in from outside. Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell's expressions changed when they saw her face clearly. P.S. Chapter 4 has been updated today. I personally think these chapters are not fake. Please give me monthly votes and recommendation vote. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 10:25. In Star Group, Yi Chen sat on the sofa while carrying his daughter. He looked at the lady in white who was walking in quietly. His expression could not help but freeze. The Patriarch of Hell, who was sitting next to him, looked like he had seen a ghost when he saw the lady in white. "Fellow Yi, how did this happen?" The Patriarch of Hell gulped. "Am I hallucinating? Did she revive or come back to life?" It was because the lady in white before him was exactly the same as the female corpse in the ice coffin in the laboratory, be it her appearance or temperament. Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and stared at the lady in white. His true origin energy was boiling. He and the Patriarch of Hell had just concluded that the female corpse was dead, but she could move in the blink of an eye. Yi Wen, Xiao Ye, and the rest were shocked as well. After all, they knew about the female corpse in the ice coffin. Seeing the lady in white walking toward Yi Chen, she had no intention of stopping. Xiao Ye took a step forward subconsciously and stood in front of her. Stop! The lady in white swayed her feet and passed by her in an instant. The scene seemed to have turned into an afterimage. She then continued walking toward Yi Chen. Xiao Ye was shocked. Subsequently, her expression turned cold. She reached out and grabbed the lady in white's back. Boom! Just as her hand was about to touch the former, she felt an incomparably terrifying force assaulting her. Bang! Xiao Ye was sent flying back. She finally stabilized her body with great difficulty, and her pretty face was filled with shock. One had to know that she was already at golden core, and her battle prowess was comparable to a supreme giant. However, she could not even touch the corner of the other party's clothes. The lady in white did not stop walking. Yi Wen, who was stunned, reacted. Just when she was about to attack, Yi Chen's voice rang in her ears. Let her come here. The lady in white looked at Yi Chen blankly when she walked to him. Subsequently, her gaze landed on Meng Meng, who was in Yi Chen's embrace. She stopped walking and did not move. Meanwhile, Yi Chen stared at her coldly. The Patriarch of Hell's eyes flickered a few times before he said, Fellow, may I know your name? The white-clothed woman seemed as if she hadn't heard him at all. No matter if it was her face or gaze, there wasn't the slightest ripple. Fellow Taoist, you're truly a peerless beauty, just like a fairy that descended to the mortal world. The Patriarch rolled his eyes and said shyly, To tell you the truth, I want to make love to you. After saying that, he stared at the woman in white with rapt attention. However, the other party remained motionless. On the other hand, Meng Meng introduced him to the woman in white with great enthusiasm. Sister, this is my father. The lady in white lifted her eyes softly and looked at Yi Chen blankly with her beautiful eyes. Her eyes were extremely empty. The Patriarch of Yellow Spring was frightened by this scene. Fellow Taoist Yi, something's not right. Could it be that he's a zombie? Yi Chen said nothing. He freed a hand and used his fingers as a saber. Then, he slashed at the lady's neck. Boom! The originally motionless woman in white suddenly erupted with a terrifying aura. Subsequently, he opened his mouth and spat. A beam of light shot out of his mouth. It charged at Yi Chen's hand with immense killing intent. Clang! Sparks surged in the air, accompanied by an ear-piercing sound. It was like metal colliding with each other. Break! Yi Chen scoffed. With a shake of his arm, the ray of light was sent flying directly. Subsequently, he continued slashing at the lady's neck. Meng Meng, who was in Yi Chen's embrace, said immediately, Sister, don't hit my father. The lady did not move at all. She allowed Yi Chen's finger blade to slash at her. There was still no fluctuation in her eyes. A strand of long hair fluttered. Yi Chen's hand finally stopped beside her exquisite collarbone. If he moved an inch further, he would be able to cut off her head. The little girl hugged his hand, her beautiful eyes tearing up. Daddy, don't bully me, all right. Yi Chen retracted his hand and lifted his head to look at the Patriarch of Yellow Spring beside him. She looks like a zombie. After some probing, he discovered something strange. There was still no vitality in the lady's body. The reason why she made this series of counterattacks seemed to be a reaction mechanism of her body's memory. The lady did not have any consciousness from the beginning to the end. She was like a living dead. The Patriarch of Yellow Spring said, Looks like she's a living dead. At this point, he looked at Meng Meng in confusion and said slowly, However, she seems to be able to understand this girl's words. That's right, Master. She seems to be very obedient. Xiao Ye and the rest nodded. They had all seen the scene earlier. The lady in white had the ability to resist, but she stopped moving after hearing what Meng Meng said. Yi Chen's eyes flickered a few times before he realized what was strange about the situation. Thinking to this point, He could not help but lower his head to look at the little girl in his embrace. How did you know this, sister? He clearly remembered that before he and the patriarch left the laboratory, he had raised his hand to set up a barrier. However, the little girl had barged in. Could it be that after he left, someone broke the barrier and forced their way into the laboratory? The little girl was a little afraid of his serious gaze. She lowered her head and told him what had happened weakly. Yi Chen and the patriarch of Yellow Spring could not believe their ears after hearing that. They thought they had heard wrongly. It was actually the little girl who broke the barrier? The patriarch of Yellow Spring shook his head without even thinking. I don't believe it. I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. What a joke. That was a third-stage barrier. Although it was not offensive, it was not considered a high-level formation. However, one would need at least a third-stage formation master to break it. Now, it was easily broken by a child? Yi Chen called Xiaohei indirectly and asked in front of everyone, "Is what this girl said true?" "Master, the young mistress didn't lie. She really broke the barrier." Xiaohei did not dare to hide anything. It was Yi Chen's turn to be surprised. After a few seconds of silence, he raised his hand and set up a first-stage barrier bewitching formation in the room. "If you can break it, I'll agree to one of your requests." The scene in the room shook, and then it was filled with thick fog. It was almost impossible to see within a 5-meter radius, let alone distinguish the directions. "Daddy, can I ask for anything?" The little girl looked at him in surprise. Yi Chen smiled lightly, of course. Only then did the little girl struggle out of his embrace. She stood where she was while biting her finger, quietly observing the fog in front of her. Subsequently, Yi Chen and the rest disappeared strangely from her world. She was the only one left in the vast fog. Everyone stared at her quietly. To put it bluntly, this bewitching formation is what ordinary people call a ghostly wall. If ordinary people are trapped in it, they won't be able to get out even if they die. The patriarch of Yellow Spring spoke frankly and said with a faint smile, "I don't think this girl can do it." Before he could finish, the smile on his face froze, and a trace of shock appeared in his eyes. Chapter 10:26. Under everyone's gaze, they saw the little girl's fair and chubby little hands. His hands fluttered like a celestial maiden scattering flowers as he formed seals with his fingers. Invisible seals were condensed in his hand. Boom! The entire barrier shook and all the fog dissipated. The scene shook again, and it turned into an office. To this, the Patriarch of Hell was in disbelief. Meanwhile, Xiaoye Yiwen and the rest were stunned as well. They stared at the little girl with their beautiful eyes wide open. The little girl placed her hands on her hips and said in a tsundere manner, "Daddy, I broke it. You must keep your promise." "Of course, Daddy." Yi Chen smiled in relief. As he thought to himself, he lifted his hand to set up a second-stage barrier, the peach blossom formation. Try this again. The scene before everyone changed again. It was replaced by a peach blossom forest. Every peach tree was identical, and even the rocks on the ground were the same. The formation did not seem to be anything special, but it was extremely confusing. Even a master ancient martial artist would not be able to find his direction in it. She shouldn't be able to break it now, right? The Patriarch of Hell thought to himself, it's a second-stage formation after all. Only a foundation-building cultivator can break it with brute force. However, the little girl ignored the peach blossom trees around her and walked toward a peach blossom tree in the southeast corner with a strong sense of direction. Yi Chen could not help but secretly nod when he saw that. He was both surprised and relieved. As everyone watched in shock, the little girl reached out and hugged the trunk of the peach blossom tree in the southeast corner. She then pulled hard, uprooting the entire peach blossom tree. At that moment all the peach trees around disappeared. The second-stage formation that Yi Chen had set up was broken again. The Patriarch of Hell was even more shocked. How did you know that peach blossom tree is flawed? The core of the peach blossom formation that Yi Chun had set up was the peach blossom tree in the southeast corner. It provided spiritual energy to maintain the entire formation. Although the principle was simple, discovering it was another matter. "Cutie, you're so stupid." The little girl smiled in disdain. "This peach blossom tree has the densest spiritual energy. Even a fool would know that there's something wrong with it." The Patriarch of Hell was speechless. "I'm actually being despised by a child?" After a few seconds of silence, he couldn't help but mutter, "The Patriarch has already possessed me. Why did he still call me butt-face in front of so many people?" Yi Chun lifted his eyes to look at him wryly. He seemed to be showing off a little. "Do you believe me now? She's indeed my daughter." He had yet to officially step onto the road of cultivation, and had not even gone through systematic study of array formation knowledge, yet he was already able to break a rank 3 enchantment. Even though he didn't set up any more tier 3 barriers, there was no point in setting up any more barriers after the first 2 had been destroyed. Patriarch Yellow Spring's face darkened. After a long while, he said, "Both of you are monsters. Daddy, you said you would agree to one of my requests. You can't go back on your word." The little fellow walked over at this time. Yi Chen picked her up and said in between tears and laughter, "All right, tell me. What do you want me to promise you?" The little fellow rolled his black eyes and then smiled slyly. "I want Daddy to promise not to bully this big sister." As soon as she said that, Yi Chen fell silent immediately. Subsequently, he fixed his gaze on the lady in white before him. There was a hint of vigilance in his eyes. Although the lady had not been resurrected and was a living dead, her background was still unknown. Moreover, the strength that she had displayed so far had already surpassed a quasi-saint. If he kept her by his side, it might lead to unimaginable consequences if anything happened in the future. As if seeing his hesitation, the little girl cried, "Daddy is a liar. He doesn't keep his word. Mommy is the best in this world. A motherless child is like a blade of grass." Sob, sob. The little girl felt wronged now. Her tears flowed out like pearls that had a broken necklace. Yi Chen could only raise his hands in surrender. "All right, Daddy will promise you, all right?" Mwack, only then did the little girl's mood lighten up. She kissed his face and beamed. "A child with a daddy is like a treasure." "But you have to tell Daddy why this sister listens to you," Yi Chen said while frowning. That was what he could not figure out the most. At that moment, Xiaohei seemed to have thought of something. He scratched his head and said, "Master, young mistress seems to have swallowed a pearl." "What pearl?" Yi Chen said immediately. "A black pearl." Xiaohei looked at the lady in white and said intermittently, "It seems to have come from her mouth." Yi Chen's expression changed slightly when he heard that. He opened the little girl's mouth immediately and checked carefully. However, there was no foreign object in the little girl's mouth. He did not give up. He grabbed the little girl's hand and channeled spiritual energy into her body, checking her entire body nervously. The Patriarch of Hell was also a little nervous. Time passed bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, Yi Chen stopped what he was doing and secretly frowned. "That's strange. There's no pearl in this girl's body." With his current cultivation base, no foreign object in the little girl's body could escape his senses. "Fellow Yi, it's better to be careful. I don't know how many years this female corpse has existed, and it floated here from the outer realm," the Patriarch of Hell said worriedly. "No, I've checked both her body and consciousness." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. The Patriarch of Hell frowned slightly and said thoughtfully, "Could it have been digested by this girl? My dear daughter, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Yi Chen seemed to be looking at the little girl nervously. The little girl shook her head repeatedly. "No. That black pearl should be a Yin pearl," Yi Chen said thoughtfully. "After this girl swallowed it, the magnetic field in this girl's body became the same as this woman's. That's why she listened to this girl. I once heard that a tomb robber entered the tomb of a woman who had just died not long ago to steal at night. In the end, he encountered thunder and lightning. The Patriarch of Hell said confidently, "This person exchanged yin and yang energy with the female corpse in the tomb mouth-to-mouth, which triggered the corpse transformation. No matter what this person did, the female corpse followed suit." At this point, he could not help but look at the lady in white beside him. There are some similarities between the two. Yi Chen hesitated for a few seconds. In the end, he split a sliver of his divine consciousness and attached it to the lady in white. The reason why he did that was because with the monitoring of his divine consciousness, he could learn about the lady's actions in time. In this way, even if something unexpected were to happen, he would be able to act in time to protect the little fellow. It was because of this that Yi Chen did not pay attention to the public opinion and the situation outside. In the blink of an eye, it was the next day. As the winter sun shone on the wall through the curtains, Yi Chen got up and lifted the curtains. He looked at the bright sun outside. A smile appeared at the corner of his lips. The weather isn't bad. It's suitable for killing. P.S. The second chapter. There are only 2 chapters today. The climax is coming. I have to sort out the outline. I hope everyone can understand. Thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 10:27. 13th of November. The sky had just turned bright. When the first rooster crowed in winter, the entire China was already in an uproar. Countless undercurrents were surging. That was because today was the most important day in China. India, Japan, Mount Olympus, the Vatican, and nearly 100 other countries, more than 30 secret realms, had joined forces to suppress China. Today, the number one person in China, Mad Southern Yi, would fight the 100 Nations Alliance army on China's sea. It could be said that today was a battle between the East and the West that was hard to come by in hundreds of years. Everyone was paying close attention to this decisive battle. That was because this battle would definitely leave a grand mark in the development of human civilization. No matter which side won, the world situation would undergo earth-shattering changes. When the powerhouses of the 100 nations rushed toward China one after another, the country was also filled with extreme killing intent. The battle is about to begin. A quasi-saint of China stood at the peak of the mountain and looked down in all directions. Everyone, as the saying goes, chivalry is for the country and the people. The Chinese martial artists have been passed down to this day, but the word chivalry has been passed down since ancient times. Now that the 100 nations have joined forces, although it looks like they're going to suppress Mad Southern Yi on the surface, have they ever taken China seriously? I'm not talented, but I'm willing to be Mad Southern Yi's vanguard today. I respect him as the king of China, kill the enemies from all directions, and defend the dignity of China. The old man took a step forward without hesitation. There were countless followers behind him, and their eyes were filled with determination. In a shabby Taoist temple in Tong State, many disciples of the temple looked at an old man in a Taoist robe in front of them with reluctance. Their eyes were slightly wet. The old man's face was old, and his face was covered in age spots. It was as if he could die at any time. The old man glanced at everyone and smiled calmly. After I go, disband the temple and leave the mountain. There's no need to erect a monument for me. In Tibet, an old lama carried a coffin with one hand and staggered. The flying snow shoots the white deer in the sky. The laughing book god leans on the green duck. A man should die to repay his country. At the Inhumans Association in Beijing, the president of the Inhumans Association, Lu Tao, stood on the high platform and looked down at the dense crowd with an extremely solemn expression. President, 83,821 mutants of level 5 and above are all in position. One of the upper echelons stepped forward and announced. Lu Tao took one last deep look at everyone. He didn't say anything. Instead, he raised his right hand and waved it. Let's go! Tens of thousands of people followed closely behind. Such scenes appeared in various corners of China at almost the same time. In the end, there were more than 200,000 people gathered. Protect China! Kill all enemies in all directions! We Chinese martial artists dare to fight and die! Fight! 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 The disciples of River East are still here today, and we are willing to make a comeback with the king. All of a sudden, the entire China was in an uproar, and the blood-boiling sound almost swept across the country. Among the ordinary people who witnessed this scene, there were many elderly people, women, and children. Everyone's expression was extremely complicated, and there were faint traces of tears in their eyes. China responded to Mad Southern Yi alone and went to fight the powerhouses of the 100 Nations without hesitation. This time, no one knew how many people would die in battle, and no one knew how many would return alive. In the crowd, an old man with a walking stick took a deep breath in and shouted with all his might, "China will win! China will win!" The people behind him roared repeatedly. At 10 a.m. on the 13th of November, Yi Chen left Tianan and pointed his sword at China's sea area. His companions included the Patriarch of Hell, Yi Wushuang, Luo Tianya, Elder Qing Xian of the Kunlun Ruins 9th Peak, Wu Tianho, and Corpse Sect Master on the southern coast of China. The nearest city to this place was Minnan. Ever since Yi Chen killed 3 overlords of the sea in the sea, and flattened the sea within 30,000 kilometers with his sword, many sea clans surrendered and no longer dared to go against the land. At this moment, although the southern sea was calm, there was a murderous aura that covered the sky. Is this China's sea? At this moment, as a magnetic voice rang out, the calm sea was instantly broken. It was a middle-aged man in white clothes. The man had long golden hair draped over his shoulders, and his entire body was filled with power. If there were Indian cultivators present, they would definitely realize that the man was the first disciple of India's #1 powerhouse, the Golden Lion King, Gerard Harris. This person was the strongest person in India after the Beast Emperor, Gerard. He was even known as the Great Sage. What powerful natural essence energy! Behind him, another old man with red hair and black eyes walked over. The old man carried a powerful force. Every step he took caused the sea within a radius of 3,000 meters to tremble. Saint Harris's eyes shone brightly. I didn't expect the most powerful yin-yang master in Japan, the heavenly yin master, to be here personally. China is really a good place. The Japanese heavenly yin master took a deep breath in. The essence energy is like a flood, and the luck is like a dragon. If the Japanese can enter China, the entire country will definitely soar. Honorable Heavenly Yin Master, you're not the only one who's interested in China. At that moment, a golden-haired, blue-eyed, gentlemanly old man from England walked over. So it's the second prince of the Blood Race's Demon Feast Alliance, Lord Rodney. The Heavenly Yin Master frowned slightly. The Demon Feast Alliance actually sent you here. Looks like they're determined to win. Behind them, there was a large group of experts that gathered like tidewater. Their formation and might practically caused space to faintly tremble. Looks like I'm early. The second prince of the blood race, Rodney, looked around and smiled faintly. Totem City in North America, the Vatican, Mount Olympus, and the dozens of secret realms and holy lands in South Africa haven't arrived yet. Let's wait. A cold gleam flashed in the Indian saint's eyes. When everyone is here, it'll be time for us to kill our way into China. At this point, he smiled disdainfully. Moreover, Mad Southern Yi hasn't arrived yet. Without this person, our trip this time will be a little boring. Mad Southern Yi thinks that he can fight against us with his own strength. He's simply arrogant and doesn't know his place. The Heavenly Yin Master mocked. He's just an excuse for us to act up. Saint Harris shook his head slightly. Previously, Mad Southern Yi went on a killing spree in China and greatly weakened China's strength. My master has been planning for this day for a long time. That's right. When Mad Southern Yi dies, it'll be time for us to kill our way into China. The second prince of the blood race licked his lips. I can't control myself when I think about the delicious blood of young girls in China. End of this chapter. Chapter 1028. At the port of Minnan. The place was originally heavily guarded to defend against the Sea Clan. However, after Yi Chen suppressed the Sea Clan, the heavy troops had long been withdrawn. Subsequently, it became a tourist attraction. Countless people came here to play, and some even went out to sea to trade with the Sea Clan. However, at that moment, the port of Minnan was filled with people. Tens of thousands of people had gathered, and it could be said to be a boiling cauldron of voices. Countless martial artists and mutants arrived one after another. They wanted nothing more than to contribute to China or to witness this important battle. When a group of people arrived at the sea, they saw a huge army in front of them. It was an army of powerhouses formed by the 100 countries. They were filled with killing intent, and human heads were surging. The Eastern Expedition Army, formed by mutated beasts and humans, was almost endless. Seeing this scene, the expressions of many Chinese powerhouses turned grim. Clearly, they did not expect so many people from the 100 countries to come. That's the Golden Lion Clan from India. A powerhouse pointed at the countless huge figures in the north of the sea. Everyone looked over, and what they saw were many tall, giant lions. They were roaring angrily and spewing flames from their mouth. That was only the tip of the iceberg, because what was even more shocking was yet to come. On the west side of the sea, figures in suits stepped on the ground. They bared their fangs, and their bodies emitted a true ferocious aura, like ferocious beasts that had awakened. It was the Blood Clan army. On the south side of the sea, countless men in black stood in the air. There were strange marks between their brows, and the eerie aura seemed to freeze the world. They were the Japanese yin-yang masters. Looks like the West is serious. A Chinese quasi-saint side. There are no less than 100 quasi-saints on the other side. With so many powerhouses joining forces, even if all the powerhouses in China join forces, it'll be difficult for them to match up to them. Another person's expression was extremely grim. He seemed to have seen the blood that was about to flow. As the Chinese martial artists rushed over, many of them were worried when they saw the army in the distance. Just as the Chinese camp was discussing, a beast king walked out from the Eastern Expedition camp in the west. It was a burly man with long brown hair and a bare upper body. His eyes were like copper bells, and his face was extremely rough. His name was Quick. It was a mutated beast from the Indian Golden Lion Clan. Quake said coldly, his voice was like a great bell, "May I ask where the #1 person in China is? Could it be that he's afraid of death, so he doesn't dare to come?" As soon as these words were spoken, many of the Eastern Punitive Expedition's soldiers burst into laughter and began to provoke the Chinese martial artists. Ridiculous! A powerhouse from the Chinese camp took a step forward and said coldly, "Do you think you can make mad Southern Yi retreat with just a bunch of mobs like you? Who are you?" Quake narrowed his eyes and looked at the former with an incomparably sharp gaze. "Do you dare to fight with me? I'm Huang Guangyuan from the Dual Blades sect of China." The Chinese powerhouse smirked in disdain. Then, with 2 sabers in his hands, his figure flashed and he took the initiative to attack Quake. China is never afraid of war. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Remember, my name is Quake, because today you will die by my hands. Quake slightly grinned, and then rushed towards Huang Guangyuan. With a flash of golden light, a golden spear appeared in his hand. Boom! The battle between the two broke out. Both Ma Guangyuan and Quake's strength was around Emperor stage, but they still attracted the attention of everyone in the Chinese camp. That was because this was the first battle of the opening. It concerned China's reputation. Clang, clang, clang. Huang Guangyuan was well versed in the 8 Gates golden lock saber. As the saying went, 1 saber depended on the hand, and 2 sabers depended on the movement. He wielded the 2 sabers in his hands, and his saber moves were heavy and fierce, forcing Quake to retreat repeatedly. Great! Many Chinese martial artists cheered. Although Quake was at a disadvantage, he was not in a hurry. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and the aura on his body suddenly changed. Swoosh, he stabbed with his spear and immediately waved it, aiming at Huang Guangyuan's lower body with terrifying strength. Huang Guangyuan's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly placed the two sabers under his waist to block the attack. Clang, clang, he only felt his arms shake violently, and the two sabers in his hands immediately shattered while his entire body was sent flying. Beast King, he's a Beast King! Damn it, a Beast King with combat strength comparable to a quasi-saint actually disguised as an emperor stage cultivator to fool us. Many Chinese people in the distance were instantly enraged. Quake smirked coldly and stabbed at Huang Guangyuan with his spear. His face was full of playfulness. Stupid Chinese, it's over, how dare you! Finally, there was a quasi-saint in the Chinese formation who could not bear it anymore. After a long roar, he attacked immediately, obviously wanting to save Huang Guangyuan. However, at this moment, another woman in black rushed out of the Eastern Punitive Expedition. She opened her mouth and spat out black spider silk that looked like a large net, attacking the former. Get lost. The expression of the Chinese quasi-saint changed slightly, as if he wanted to blast it away with a punch, but he found that he was tightly entangled. He could only watch helplessly as Quake stabbed at Huang Guangyuan with his spear in the distance, his face full of grief and indignation. Bastard! Do you really think that there's no one in Hua? Immediately after, a few more Chinese quasi-saints attacked. Their killing intent almost swept through the world, but they were still blocked by the powerhouses of the Eastern Punitive Expedition. The tip of Quake's spear was only an inch away from Huang Guangyuan. I've already said that no one can save you. If you kneel before me and admit that all Chinese people are pigs, I might spare your life. Not only was Huang Guangyuan not afraid, but he also laughed calmly. You want my life? Even if I die, I'll break all your teeth. Boom! The aura in his body suddenly skyrocketed several times, and even his body size doubled. From afar, he looked like a balloon. Obviously, he wanted to self-destruct. A Chinese powerhouse roared, "Old Huang, no!" Huang Guangyuan's eyes were filled with madness. We Chinese martial artists dare to fight and die. If you're going to die, then it'll start with me. Lunatic Quake's expression changed instantly. He seemed to want to retreat, but he realized that the former was charging at him without fear of death. You're just an ant. Do you think you can drag a member of the Golden Lion clan down with you? At this moment, a cold laugh exploded in the void. Suddenly, a giant hand reached out from the Eastern Punitive Expedition to grab Huang Guangyuan. At the same time, a terrifying pressure instantly descended, suppressing Huang Guangyuan, who was about to self-destruct. Huang Guangyuan, who was about to self-destruct, immediately knelt on one knee, his eyes filled with fear. Just as the giant hand was about to grab him, an indifferent voice exploded in the void. Since you dare to stretch out your dog claws, then leave it here. End of this chapter. Chapter 10:29. Rumble, suddenly, purple lightning appeared in the sky. Then, a shocking sword gleam slashed across the sky, like an antelope hanging its horn, a white steed flashing past a crack. Chi, under such a sword strike, the giant hand was like fragile glass, and it was forcefully cut apart. Blech. In the Eastern Punitive Army, Harris, who was known as the Great Sage Saint Master in India, immediately let out a muffled groan. Then, he looked at the sky coldly. Almost at that moment, everyone raised their eyes in unison, as if they were looking for the owner of that figure. On the other hand, the Chinese martial artists were extremely excited. The blue sky actually distorted at this moment, and a huge spatial vortex that was 30 meters wide suddenly appeared. Under everyone's attentive gazes, a thin figure slowly walked out, carrying a 5-year-old girl in his arms. Behind him, another dozen figures stepped out. Although there were not many of them, as they descended, it caused the world to become oppressive. At this moment, all the Chinese martial artists stared blankly at the young man in the lead. "That's Yi. Mad Southern Yi." A moment later, they came back to their senses, and their faces were filled with ecstasy. "It's really Mad Southern Yi." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Almost at that moment, countless Chinese martial artists knelt on one knee before Yi Chen. "Greetings, Mr. Yi." A voice that sounded like muffled thunder from the 9 heavens resounded through the entire sky. It was so loud that it almost covered all the sounds in the world. On the other hand, many powerhouses in the Eastern Punitive Army from the Western Punitive Army had solemn expressions on their faces. Then, there was an endless murderous aura. Mad Southern Yi had arrived. This meant that a great war was about to start, and it also meant that the time to change the world situation had arrived. "Mad Southern Yi, since you're here today, it's time for us to settle things with you." In the Eastern Punitive Army, Saint Harris of India took a step forward. "You killed my junior brother, Walker. You must give the Golden Lion clan an explanation for this." "Explanation?" Yi Chen landed steadily while carrying his daughter. He looked at the former slowly with cold eyes. "After I kill you, I'll head to India and destroy your Golden Lion clan." After saying that, he turned his gaze to Quake in the distance, and an extreme killing intent flashed in his eyes. "How dare you attack a Chinese? You deserve to die." At that moment, Quake's body trembled, as if he had been targeted by some peerless beast. Without another word, he charged into the Eastern Punitive Expedition camp. However, Yi Chen was faster than him. Yi Chen curled his fingers and transformed them into a dragon claw that grabbed him. This series of actions was incomparably fast. Even the experts of the Eastern Punitive Expedition were unable to act in time. "Saint, save me." Quake repeatedly called for help from Harris, his heart filled with extreme fear. Harris was furious. "Mad Southern Yi, you boom!" Before he could finish, there was a loud noise, and a scarlet mist of blood splashed in the void. Yi Chen lifted his head slowly and looked at Harris. He squinted and smiled. "This is my explanation for you." At the same time, Quake's beast core shot towards the Eastern Punitive Expedition camp. Whoosh! At that moment, a figure appeared before him like a ghost. He reached out a hand and grabbed it. After the Patriarch of Hell put it away, he returned to Yi Chen's side and said happily, "I can use it to refine medicinal pills again." The Indian saint, Harris, was so angry that his face turned livid. He wished he could tear the Patriarch of Hell into pieces. "Mad Southern Yi, I didn't expect you to be so arrogant in such a situation." The Japanese Yin-Yang master, the evil Tenin master, took a step forward. His entire body was filled with Yin energy. "Do you really think you're invincible?" "I don't dare to say that I'm invincible." Yi Chen looked around and sneered. "However, I'm afraid you guys aren't enough for me to kill." With a sweep of his divine consciousness, he found out the number of powerhouses on the other side. 100 quasi-saint powerhouses. Such a number was definitely not the entire strength of the Western countries. "What if we join you?" An extremely dignified voice was heard. Everyone could not help but raise their heads to look. They saw incomparably holy ships flying over from the western horizon. There seemed to be the chanting of gods and angels on them. Resplendent holy light almost enveloped heaven and earth. One could vaguely see knights in holy armor on the ship. The Knights Vanguard is the Vatican's Knights Vanguard. It's known as an army led by the gods. It's once caused countless massacres in Europe. No one can stop it. Many people's expressions changed drastically. As the holy ship landed, 3 red-clothed old men holding holy weapons and wearing crosses walked down. They were the 3 red-clothed archbishops. "Your Excellency Mad Southern Yi from China." The leading red-clothed archbishop, Oliver, was extremely dignified. "You've been listed as a heretic by the Vatican. Today, we've come to judge you on the orders of our Father." "It's not enough even if I add you guys." Yi Chen sneered. "Really? What if you add me?" Resplendent divine radiance came from the west, and then a rising sun slowly rose from the west. A man wearing a golden divine robe slowly walked out from the rising sun. He was shrouded in divine radiance, making people want to kneel on the ground from the bottom of their hearts. With every step he took, a lotus flower would appear under his feet. His eyes were like two suns, making people not dare to look him in the eye. Behind him were more than 10 beast kings. It's Hermes, the messenger of Mount Olympus, one of the 12 main gods of the holy mountain. Everyone was shocked. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Even with you guys, it's just a waste of my time. And us. Rumble, following that, earth-shattering noises swept over from all 4 directions. One by one, the gods descended upon the world. There were Totem City from North America, the gods from the Vulcan sect, the Beast Emperor from the Dark Wolf clan, and the Pharaoh's mummy army from Egypt in just a few breaths of time. The powerhouses from more than 30 secret realms and holy lands from over 100 countries around the world had all arrived. More than 350 quasi-saints. At that moment, even the Chinese powerhouses who were prepared to die and had full trust in Yi Chen almost fainted. The other party had more than 300 quasi-saints, and they only had 100 at most. The difference in combat strength was too great. Among the Vatican's knights, red-cloved Archbishop Oliver smiled. May I ask if that's enough now? Barely enough. Yi Chen lifted his eyelids lightly as if he was disappointed. Unfortunately, not all of your powerhouses are here. Forget it, I'll make a trip to the west after I kill all of you. With that, he suddenly took out a jade talisman and crushed it. His indifferent voice sounded, "Come out." P.S. Chapter 3. Today's update is complete. End of this chapter. Chapter 10:30. At this moment, above the Minnan Sea, the atmosphere was extremely tense. Everyone looked at the gods descending from the west, and the supreme powerhouses appeared one after another. In the end, almost all the 30 holy lands and secret realms around the world were present. Among them, there were even divine senses from Mount Olympus, as well as the murderous knights of the Vatican City. All of this shocked everyone. All the powerhouses in China could not stand still. There were more than 300 peerless powerhouses with combat strength comparable to quasi-saints in the Western expedition this time. All the powerhouses in China were only at the combat strength of 100 quasi-saints. In other words, once the battle broke out, the other side would fight 3 against 1. How could they fight? Through the satellite surveillance and even the live broadcast, the hearts of countless Chinese who saw this scene sank to the bottom. Countless people of the older generation closed their eyes and sighed bitterly. Is the heavens going to destroy the Chinese cultivation world? Everyone, we might have to die in battle this time. One of the quasi-saints took a deep breath and his eyes were filled with determination. Someone laughed loudly, not without a trace of solemnity. Even if we die, we will fight to the last man. Just as everyone was about to fight with their lives on the line, they heard someone say, "Look, what's Mad Southern Yi doing?" When everyone looked over subconsciously, Yi Chen suddenly took out a jade talisman and crushed it. Then, he said coldly, "Come out." Everyone was a little confused by his abnormal behavior. What's that? What's he doing? Among the Western powerhouses, Indian St. Harris, Mount Olympus Divine Consciousness Hermes, and the rest were also puzzled. An old man in black linen robes took a step forward with a walking stick in his hand and smiled mockingly. "Mad Southern Yi, if you're afraid, as long as you kowtow and beg for mercy now and swear your loyalty to us, we might spare your life." Many people's pupils constricted as they immediately recognized him. It was the high priest of Totem City, Christian. Beg for mercy? A strange arc appeared in Yi Chen's eyes. That's right. Christian seemed to be pleased with himself. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly raised his head. The others seemed to have sensed something and followed suit. The originally blue sky actually began to slowly distort at this moment, causing countless seagulls to flee in all directions. The spatial distortion grew larger and larger, faintly resembling a giant millstone spinning rapidly. Boom! When the distorted space reached its limit, the space suddenly collapsed, and a huge crack was slowly torn open. As the space was torn apart, a monstrous fiendish aura and killing intent permeated the air. An unknown force has arrived. Hermes, the oracle of Mount Olympus, said. Unknown force? The pupils of the Japanese yin-yang master, the sky yin-evil master, constricted. After looking around, he said, the famous secret realms and sacred grounds have all come. What kind of force is it? Under everyone's gaze, countless ferocious figures rushed out from the huge crack in the sky. Kunlun Ruins Dao Sect's sect master, Lei Yang, has brought the Dao Sect's disciples to pay their respects to the master of Kunlun Ruins and lend China a hand. As an extremely old voice sounded, the countless figures were completely exposed in the world. Hiss, at this moment, many people, including the powerhouses of China and the West, gasped in shock. Among the countless figures in the sky, the leader was actually over 20 quasi-saint almighties. Kunlun Ruins. The second prince of the blood clan, Rodney, was shocked at first, then he cried out, the most mysterious sacred ground in China, Kunlun Ruins, has appeared. As soon as he finished speaking, a commotion broke out among the Western powerhouses. Kunlun Ruins? China's sacred ground. Before this, the Western powerhouses had secretly investigated and found out that Yi Chen had a grudge against the Kunlun Ruins. Therefore, they believed that the Kunlun Ruins would not attack. Who would have thought that someone from the Kunlun Ruins would come? On the other hand, the Chinese camp was extremely excited. Kunlun Ruins. Their Chinese sacred ground had appeared. Moreover, they were here to help them. At this moment, Saint Harris of India took a step forward from the Western camp and looked at the Dao Sect's sect master, Lei Yang. Your Excellency Lei Yang of China's sacred ground, today's matter is only a personal grudge between us and Mad Southern Yi. I hope that you won't interfere. Initially, he thought that they were too purposeful, which was why they forced the powerhouses of the Kunlun Ruins into the world. That was why they targeted Yi Chen alone. That's right. The second prince of the blood clan, Rodney, also spoke. We have no intention of touching China. We only want to kill Mad Southern Yi. Please don't misunderstand. He felt that after he said that, the Kunlun Ruins would definitely retreat based on the grudge between Yi Chen and the Kunlun Ruins. However, Lei Yang, who was in the air, smirked coldly. If you Western barbarians dare to target the master of the Kunlun Ruins, you'll be making the entire Kunlun Ruins your enemy. What? The master of the Kunlun Ruins? Hermes was stunned at first. Then, he seemed to have recalled something and looked at Yi Chen all of a sudden. Mad Southern Yi is the master of the Kunlun Ruins? The moment that was said, everyone fell silent. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At that moment, countless eyes looked at Yi Chen at the same time. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Mad Southern Yi is the master of the Kunlun Ruins? The Chinese powerhouses were also in disbelief. Many of them were dumbfounded, thinking that they had heard wrongly. At the next moment, Lei Yang, who was in the air, descended from the sky with everyone. They landed next to Yi Chen accurately. Under countless people's gazes, Lei Yang knelt on one knee before Yi Chen. Lei Yang, the master of the Kunlun Ruins Dao Sect, greets the master of the Kunlun Ruins. Bang, bang, bang. After him, the hundreds of figures knelt on one knee before Yi Chen. Their movements were neat and uniform. Greetings, master of the Kunlun Ruins. A voice that was low and deep like thunder reverberated through the heavens and the earth, and it shook the hearts of everyone to the point of trembling without end. How is this possible? The Japanese yin-yang master, heavenly yin master, and the rest had ugly expressions on their faces. They could not believe their eyes. Yi Chen is the master of the Kunlun Ruins? Humph! Right at that moment, a cold snort came from the mouth of the Olympus oracle, Hermes. It's just over 20 more quasi-saints. What can it change? All of you will die under my Western army. As soon as he finished speaking, many of the Western powerhouses immediately reacted. That's right. Even with the 20-odd quasi-saints from the Kunlun Ruins Tao sect, China only had 130 people at most, while the West had more than 360 quasi-saints. This difference in combat strength could not be made up for. Thinking to this point, many Western powerhouses sneered, and the killing intent in their eyes surged again. A sneer came from the spatial rift that had yet to dissipate. Is that so? What if the Kunlun Ruins Devil Sect is included? Chapter 1031. Rumble. Another explosion came from the spatial rift, and then a monstrous demonic energy swept out from the rift. At the next moment, countless red men leaped out. The ferocious aura that emanated from their bodies seemed to materialize, causing the space to faintly freeze. The Indian saint, Harris, looked at the figure that suddenly appeared. His gaze landed on the dozen or so people leading the group, and his pupils constricted violently. Another 20 sage-to-be experts. Bang! As the large group of people landed, an old man in a red robe with a sinister expression returned to Yi Chen on one knee. He said respectfully, "The master of the Kunlun Ruins Devil Sect, Ing Feng, greets the master of the Kunlun Ruins." "Greetings, master of the Kunlun Ruins." The large group of people returned on one knee. Their shouts shook the sky, and the monstrous murderous aura that erupted from their bodies caused the expressions of countless people to change. The Olympus envoy, Hermes's expression remained unchanged. "Even with all of you, it's still not enough." A sinister laughter suddenly exploded in the world, like the roar of a ferocious ghost, and the ghoul sect. Then, a dense group of black human heads walked out of the crack in the void. The one leading them was a skinny, gloomy old man. The master of the Kunlun Ruins Ghoul sect, Ba Liming, brings the disciples of the Ghoul sect to greet the master of the Kunlun Ruins. The skinny old man chuckled at Yi Chen. Amitba, the master of the Buddhist sect, Monk Lotus Zen, greets the master of the Kunlun Ruins. The master of the Star sect, Xing Yuanzi, greets the master of the Kunlun Ruins. The master of the Spirit Talisman sect, Yuan Fuzi, greets the master of the Kunlun Ruins. The disciple of the Purple Cap Mountain, Zir, greets the master of the Kunlun Ruins. The treasure pavilion of the Kunlun Ruins, the Fire sect of the Kunlun Ruins, the Wuling sect of the Kunlun Ruins. In just a few dozen breaths, countless figures rushed out from the spatial rift one after another. Powerful auras completely pierced through the world. On the other hand, the number of quasi-saint powerhouses on the Chinese side increased exponentially. In the end, there were more than 320 of them. Dead silence, the world was as silent as death. At that moment, everyone's eyes widened as they stared blankly at the many powerhouses who had suddenly arrived. Their gazes finally landed on Yi Chen. 200 quasi-saints. China suddenly had 200 more quasi-sages. Meanwhile, they were all moving because of Yi Chen. It was because Yi Chen was the master of Kunlun Ruins. The Western cultivators were silent. Their eyes were twitching and trembling. Before this, they had taken advantage of the fact that they had the advantage of numbers and treated Yi Chen like they were looking at 4 people. It was like a cat playing with a mouse. However, the situation was reversed in an instant. Yi Chen had summoned 200 quasi-saints out of thin air. As a result, the Chinese side had more than 320 demi-saints, while the Western side had 360. Even though there was a huge disparity in the number of experts on both sides, they still couldn't accept it. Right at this moment, a beast king from the West sneered. "So what if your battle prowess is vaguely on par with ours? Don't forget, we still have the Oracle Hermes on our side." As soon as he said that, many of the Western experts reacted and looked at Hermes. Among all the Western experts present, Hermes's battle prowess could be said to be the strongest. This was because he was one of the 12 gods on Mount Olympus. His battle prowess was above that of a saint, and the gap between a saint and a quasi-saint was insurmountable. Hearing that, the expressions of many of the Chinese experts, who were excited about the increase in the number of powerhouses on their side, changed. That was right. The other party had the Oracle Hermes with them. This was not something a quasi-saint could compare to. You're just a saint in the mouth of the Western barbarians. Do you think you're worthy of being called the Oracle? An elderly voice rang out from the void. This voice was mixed with a monstrous battle intent. As a purple aura pierced through the sky, it brought with it a boundless pressure that covered the sky and covered the earth as it swept over. Under everyone's gazes, they saw an extremely sturdy green ox with muscles all over its body coming over on a cloud. On its back was a boy dressed in white. He was only 12 or 13 years old, and he had a head of white hair. He sat there like a god, refining and opening up on his own. Strange phenomena appeared frequently. It was the patriarch of Purple Cap Mountain, Zi Qingtsang, the first saint since the spiritual energy recovery of the Kunlun ruins. Saint, it's a saint. There's actually a saint in China. Countless Chinese powerhouses revealed expressions of disbelief. Their eyes were filled with indescribable excitement, and some even cried tears of joy. At that moment, the expression of the Beast King from the Western camp changed abruptly. On the other hand, Hermes's expression gradually turned grim, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. Master, I've finally completed your mission. It's not too late, right? After the green ox landed, it wagged its tail and walked to Yi Chen's side. It seemed to be trying to please him. Well done. I'll reward you generously after this. Yi Chen nodded lightly, seemingly satisfied. As soon as Zi Qingtsang appeared, his eyes locked onto Hermes. Fellow Yi, leave this person to me. All right. Yi Chen nodded lightly. Subsequently, he looked at the Western camp slowly, coldly. A smile appeared at the corner of his lips. This is the gift that I've prepared for you guys. Are you satisfied? The Western camp fell silent. Then, the Japanese Yin-Yang Master, the Heavenly Yin Master, roared. Everyone, we still have the upper hand. Let's end the battle as soon as possible. No matter what, we must kill them today. Kill. With that, his body expanded and his clothes were torn apart. The dozen or so blood-colored eyes on his chest were instantly exposed. The dozen or so eyes were the size of an ox's, and they were filled with endless resentment and gloom. It was as if one would be scared out of their wits just by looking at them. Kill. Saint Harris of India roared into the sky. Then, his body swayed, and he immediately transformed into a golden lion that was 30 meters tall with sharp fangs. Kill, kill, kill. Kill all the Chinese dogs. At that moment, all the Western powerhouses were filled with killing intent. Boom, the aura on Yi Chen's body skyrocketed. His divine consciousness covered heaven and earth as he shouted, "Where are the Chinese men now?" Boom, boom, boom. At the next moment, countless Chinese powerhouses took a step forward and their voices shook the sky. The Chinese men will never admit defeat. Everyone, follow me. Today we'll kill all these pieces of trash, raise the dignity of our country, and restore the glory of our country. Yi Chen put down his daughter and roared into the sky. He charged at the Japanese Yin-Yang Master, the Heavenly Yin Master, and the rest directly. Today, he was going to kill until the world trembled. Fight! Behind him, a Chinese quasi-saint laughed out loud and leaped out. Killing one today is worth it. Killing two is considered a win. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. When have the disciples of Sanxiang ever been afraid of battle? When have I ever been afraid of death? Another Chinese powerhouse did not hesitate. His vital energy and blood erupted from his body, suppressing the entire place. Kill, kill, kill. After them, the roars of many Chinese powerhouses shook the sky. At the same time, they soared into the sky and charged at the opponents they had chosen beforehand. An earth-shattering battle erupted. Chapter 1032. Rumble, the deafening sounds of battle, screams, furious roars, and roars interweaved at this moment, drowning out heaven and earth. There was an endless killing aura in the air, and there was an increasingly dense smell of blood. Blood dyed the sea and the horizon red. Nyo Nyo, protect this girl. The patriarch of hell grabbed Meng Meng and retreated 3,000 meters away before instructing the green ox. Without waiting for the green ox's reply, the patriarch pierced through the sky with one hand and headed straight for St. Harris of India. Kill! Today, we'll turn the world upside down. Let's kill them all. Yi Wushuang, Luo Tianya, Elder Qin Xian, Corpse Sex Sect Master Wu Tianho, and the rest attacked together. Meng Meng stood in the distance and watched the chaotic battle in the distance. A trace of fear suddenly appeared in the depths of her quiet eyes. Then, she called out, "Daddy!" Tears dripped down her cheeks. Even cultivators would be shocked by such a grand scene, let alone a 5-year-old child. The little girl was suddenly afraid that something would happen to her father. The more she thought about it, the sadder she became. Eventually, she could not help but cry. The green ox, who was guarding by the side, immediately panicked. "Io, my little ancestor, why are you crying? P.S. Chapter 3 has been updated today. Don't cry, don't cry. Watch Uncle Nyo show you acrobatics." As the green ox coaxed her, he subconsciously walked over to comfort the little girl. However, just as he was about to approach the little girl, a white-clothed figure suddenly appeared before her. Boom! Without saying a word, the white-clothed figure attacked the green ox and slapped it heavily. Bang! Caught off guard, the green ox was sent flying 300 meters away by the slap, causing shocking waves on the surface of the sea. The little girl who was crying earlier immediately smiled through her tears. After the green ox stood up, he looked at the white-clothed woman in front of the little girl in shock. He touched the slap mark on his face and said, "Damn it, where did this fierce woman come from?" Among the figures in the chaotic battle. Die! Yi Chen stabbed through the crowd with the true martial thousand lightning sword in his hand. His figure was untraceable like a ghost. Wherever he passed, many Western experts successively died under his sword, forming a ghastly and bloody path. Mad Southern Yi, let me fight you! The second prince of the blood race, Rodney, let out a roar as a pair of huge purplish-golden bat wings appeared behind him. The pair of violet-gold bat wings were like clouds that covered the sky, and there were dense talisman markings surging on them, giving them a strange and unfathomable feeling. Roar! As he opened his mouth, a pair of sharp and long fangs appeared at the corner of his mouth. It was as if an ancient ferocious beast was roaring. Boom! He flapped his wings and disappeared from where he was instantly. He left an afterimage that looked like a black dragon in the air and charged at Yi Chen at 10 times the speed of sound. The huge purplish-gold bat wings on its back actually cut the space around it apart. It was terrifying. As expected of the second prince of the blood tribe, the Western experts who were secretly watching this scene were secretly shocked. Clearly, it was their first time seeing Rodney attack. Yi Chen held the true martial thousand lightning sword in his hand. Purple lightning flowed through his entire body as he slashed. At that moment, lightning surged between heaven and earth. A sword gleam that tore through the sky, swallowing and spitting sword gleams as it charged into the sky. It was like a terrifying sea of swords. Rumble! Rodney's pupils dilated instantly. Before he could react, his entire body was split into two. A thick bloody mist rose into the sky. This scene was witnessed by many people in the West, and everyone's faces were filled with shock. He had killed the second prince of the blood tribe with a single strike. How dare an ant-like thing attack me? Yi Chen's eyes were cold. He took a step forward and charged tirelessly at the Japanese Yin-Yang Master, the heavenly Yin Master. At the same time, the expression of the messenger on Mount Olympus, Hermes, changed. He seemed to have sensed what Yi Chen was thinking. At the next moment, Light surged in his hand, and a magic staff that was filled with endless divine radiance suddenly appeared. He stepped toward Yi Chen directly. "This path is blocked." At that moment, the patriarch of Kunlun Ruins' Purple Cap Mountain, Zi Qingtsang, intercepted him. "Your opponent is me. You're courting death." The messenger, Hermes, had an extremely grim expression. Divine light erupted from his body, dazzling and resplendent as he attacked Zi Qingtsang. Rumble, the two saint-level existences were officially fighting. In the north of the chaotic battlefield, clang, clang, an old man from China killed several people with a single slash. Then, he furrowed his brows and roared, "I'm the Saber Saint of China. Who dares to fight me? I'll kill you." The high priest of Totem City, South Africa's secret realm, Christian, leaped over. The strange totem between his brows flickered. "Kill." The two of them exchanged blows instantly. Bang! A few seconds later, the old man's head flew into the air. His body fell rapidly, and he died on the spot. South of the battlefield, a beast king that had mutated from an elephant on Mount Olympus waved its trunk and pierced through a Chinese monkey king. The Chinese monkey king's heart was instantly pierced, but before it died, it self-destructed. Rumble, under such power, 3 beast kings, including the beast king on Mount Olympus, were killed on the spot. West of the battlefield, an old Tibetan lama in a yellow kasaya was torn in half by a South African warhound's giant, and a bloody mist filled the air. Living Buddha. In the distance, a young Tibetan Buddhist youth vomited blood and almost fainted after witnessing this scene. Just as he was in a daze, a supreme giant of the Indian Golden Lion clan wielded a long spear and stabbed towards the back of the Golden Lion clan. "Be careful!" With a cry of alarm, an old man from China blocked in front of him and forcefully endured the spear. The old man's vitality quickly dissipated, and he smiled calmly. "Child, don't be sad. Don't cry. The living Buddha died a worthy death. After his death, he should enter the Western paradise." After saying that, his eyes slowly closed. "Ah!" the young Tibetan Buddhist roared repeatedly. His eyes were bloodshot as he pounced into the crowd. "Come and kill me! Come and kill me!" Several murderous intents attacked him. But at this moment, a huge hoof descended from the sky, directly trampling those Western experts to death. "Silly boy, Grandpa Ox will bring you to kill people." The green bull swung its tail and directly dragged the young Tibetan Buddhist onto its back. Then, it puffed out a few white breaths from its nostrils. The green bull's body expanded to 100 feet, and relying on its thick skin and flesh, it fearlessly charged into the crowd. With the movement of his horns, many people were trampled to death. The number of Western experts that died under his hooves was innumerable. One kick for one child. The green bull's ferocious nature was unleashed. In the next moment, an earth-shattering scream shook the entire world. "No!" The scream immediately attracted everyone's attention, and it spread across the entire Hua Nation's sea. End of this chapter. Chapter 1033. Above the Minnan Sea. At this moment, it was as if they had fallen into purgatory on earth. Tens of thousands of experts from the east and west fell into an endless battle. Kill, kill, kill! All the Chinese martial artists' eyes were bloodshot as a thought appeared in their minds. That was to kill. Kill all the Western experts in front of them. Kill until the sky cries blood. Kill until the world trembles. The world was covered by the sounds of battle, screams, furious roars and roars. The blood energy that filled the sky stimulated everyone. Just like that, people died one after another or fell from the sky. There were Western cultivators and Hua cultivators among them. No! Right at this moment, a scream that could shatter heaven and earth rang out from the sky, attracting everyone's attention. In the sky, a large amount of blood energy swept in all directions. A figure with a cold aura suddenly collapsed, mixed with blood and splattered everywhere. Meanwhile, Yi Chen, who was standing before him, had cold eyes. Although he was bathed in blood, he was not stained with any blood. Heavenly Evil Master! At this moment, the movements of the Western experts froze, and their eyes were filled with extreme shock. The most powerful yin-yang master in Japan, the Heavenly Evil Master, was dead. Moreover, he was killed by Yi Chen with a single punch. He's too powerful! How can mad Southern Yi be so powerful? Countless people shuddered at the thought of this. One had to know that the Heavenly Evil Master's strength was infinitely close to that of a saint. In the entire world, he was one of the few peerless powerhouses. However, he died so miserably. On the other hand, the Chinese experts were filled with excitement and cheers, especially the many powerhouses from the Kunlun ruins. They did not expect Yi Chen's strength to increase so quickly. Even the god's messenger, Hermes, who was fighting the Kunlun ruins saint, had a change of expression. Yi Chen's strength had exceeded his expectations. He even vaguely sensed danger. Bunch of trash, continue to kill me! Yi Chen stood in the air with a cold expression. He looked down on everyone like a god. Mad Southern Yi from China is here. Which Western dog wants to die? Rumble. As soon as he said that, many Western experts roared and charged at him with bloodshot eyes. He's too powerful. Let's attack together. Saint Harris of India shouted. Then, golden blood burst out of his body. Not to mention ordinary people, even a quasi-sage would be shocked by this kind of pressure. Kill! The South African war hound's giant expert's body doubled in size once again. Then he raised his hammer and smashed towards Yi Chen step by step. With every step he took, the space beneath his feet would tremble and then shatter. His physical body could be said to be abnormal. The next moment, the high priest of North America's totem city, the bishop of Houston's fire god sect, the Dark Wolf clan's beast king, the Egyptian mummy pharaoh, and the others all attacked together. Elder Qing Xian swung his sword and a sword beam pierced through the air. His voice was like thunder. If you want to bully us with numbers, you still have to ask if we agree. And us, the corpse sect master Wu Tianho, and the rest leaped out and stood in front of Yi Chen to protect him at the same time. Killing intent surged from their bodies. However, at that moment, Yi Chen's cold voice came, "All of you leave." Peak Master. Elder Qing Xian wanted to speak by instinct. Never had he thought that Yi Chen would dare to fight more than 10 supreme powerhouses of the secret realms on his own. Leave. Go and save the others. You must reduce the casualties of our Chinese martial artists. Yi Chen squinted as he could not deny it. Subsequently, he took a step forward and actually took the initiative to walk towards the supreme powerhouses of the secret realms. A thunderous voice resounded through the entire sea. We will not stop fighting until the last person is killed. Arrogant. The giant expert from the South African war hounds tribe shouted and waved his hammer. He pierced through the air and charged at Yi Chen. Boom! Yi Chen waved his fist. His movements seemed to be slow, but after that punch was thrown, the terrifying might seem to be able to shatter the world. Oh no! The South African war hound's giant's expression changed. He was shocked because he felt that his soul was about to shatter under Yi Chen's punch. Rumble, killing intent surged in Yi Chen's eyes. The momentum of his punch did not decrease at all. When his punch landed, it directly shattered the giant hammer. Retreat. The war hound's giant instantly spat a mouthful of blood. His face was dispirited, and he retreated without saying a word. Don't let him find a chance. Saint Harris and the others from India roared furiously. As several terrifying auras erupted, more than 10 experts fought to be the first to unleash their strongest attack. Bang, bang, bang! Divine radiance surged on Yi Chen's body. He did not even make a sound as he continued to charge forward. His attacks were wide, as if he was possessed by a god of war. Bang! The punch landed on the war hound's giant's shoulder, shattering half of the giant's shoulder along with his right arm. The latter screamed continuously. He was terrified to discover that the body that he was proud of seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow from Yi Chun. Bang! Another punch landed. This punch was still righteous and invincible. It forcefully smashed the former's head into a pile of meat paste. Kill! At the sight of this scene, the eyes of everyone else were filled with shock, and then they were covered by madness. Yi Chen's expression remained cold. He continued to swing his invincible fists, vowing to kill all his enemies. Boom! The high priest of Totem City in North America was dead. The king of the Dark Wolf clan was dead. The great wizard of the Fire God sect was dead. He punched continuously, and each punch would kill a person mercilessly and domineeringly. The people who were fighting around him stopped at some point in time. All of them watched the scene in shock. Too powerful. Yi Chen is too powerful. The hearts of the Western powerhouses, who were extremely confident before this, gradually sank as they watched the supreme powerhouses die one after another. On the other hand, many Chinese martial artists felt their blood boil when they saw that. They were all shocked by Yi Chen's ferocity. Whoosh! Suddenly, there was a flash of brilliance in Saint Harris's hand, and then a golden tree branch appeared. The veins on the branch were clearly visible, like rapidly pulsing blood vessels, faintly emitting an extremely strange and dangerous aura. Even the other Western powerhouses' expressions changed at that moment, and their scalps went numb. Golden Divine Tree. A Western powerhouse sucked in a breath of cold air. This is the spirit treasure of the #1 powerhouse in India. It's said that this tree has an independent life and feeds on blood. Anyone trapped by it will instantly turn into a pool of blood. Mad Southern Yi, I didn't want to use the spirit treasure that Master gave me, but you forced me to do this. Extreme madness flashed across the face of the Indian saint, Harris, before he suddenly waved the golden branch in his hand. P.S. Just one chapter for today. I'll update as usual tomorrow. The reason why I didn't update yesterday was because I caught a cold. After driving, I realized that I wasn't feeling well, so I slept from 2 p.m. to 11 a.m. I know some people won't believe me, but there have been a lot of people who have caught a cold these days. Plus, I usually stay up late and lack of exercise, so my body's resistance is too weak. End of this chapter. Chapter 1034. Swoosh. As Saint Harris waved the golden tree branch in his hand, the golden tree branch instantly expanded. Under everyone's gaze, 7 small branches grew out of thin air on the golden tree branch. They were all blood red, and an extremely terrifying aura was emitted from them. What a powerful blood aura! As expected of the #1 powerhouse in India, Lord Gerard Beast Emperor's spirit treasure. It's said that in order to refine this treasure, Lord Gerard forcefully took in hundreds of thousands of refugees. This golden divine tree absorbed hundreds of thousands of blood aura. At that moment, the expressions of the Western powerhouses changed. Many experts from the Hua nation stared at the Emperor Realm Divine Tree with extremely solemn expressions. The Beast Emperor's spirit treasure. Could Mad Southern Yi resist it? Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Immediately after, the 7 small branches on the Emperor Stage Divine Tree moved in the wind and flew out at the same time. They were like the ferocious tongues of ancient ferocious beasts. As the golden divine tree expanded, Saint Harris's body shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Clearly, he had sacrificed all of his blood aura. Mad Southern Yi die. Ah! Harris, who was as shriveled as a mummy, laughed maniacally. As soon as he finished speaking, the 7 branches that were like ferocious tongues charged at Yi Chen with a monstrous murderous aura. They were so powerful that they almost covered the entire world. Is that all you've got? You want to kill me? Yi Chen placed one hand behind his back and extended the other from his chest. His movements seemed extremely ordinary. However, in everyone's eyes, it was like an azure dragon's giant claw that swept across the region, forcefully traversing the sky. Rumble, the azure dragon's giant claw directly enveloped the golden divine tree that covered the sky. A visible origin energy storm swept out in all directions, accompanied by a large amount of blood aura. Its might was shocking. Saint Harris spat a mouthful of blood and retreated repeatedly. His face was filled with extreme shock. How is this possible? How is this possible? That was a spirit treasure bestowed by his master, the only beast emperor in India. Even the beast emperor of the West or the saint of the East could not destroy it, right? However, Yi Chen crushed it forcefully? His expression changed as he thought to this point. He then looked at Yi Chen. Why, you're a saint, die. Before he could finish his sentence, Yi Chen stepped forward and an endless amount of divine might bloomed under his foot. Bang! The killing intent in Yi Chen's eyes was boundless. His gaze was terrifying and his black hair fluttered in the wind. With a stomp, he crushed the man's body and turned his astral body into ashes. Suddenly, the heavens and the earth fell into a dead silence. At this moment, whether it was the experts from the East or the West, all of their expressions changed, and they felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. This was especially true for the Western powerhouses. They were in despair. Although the Indian Saint Harris only had the battle prowess of a quasi-saint, his strength was enough to place him in the top 20 in the entire world. Furthermore, he had the help of the Beast King's sharp weapon. Even if the Beast King were to personally attack him, he would not be able to kill him so quickly. However, he was killed by Yi Chen with a single stomp. Sage! He's a saint. Some of the surviving concealed state experts roared out in rage, their faces filled with disbelief. As soon as these words came out, the entire place was silent. A saint. In the West, this level of combat power represented the existence of a beast emperor. In the entire world, it was only an index. Some people refused to believe it, but the truth was right before their eyes. It had only been half an hour since the battle between the East and the West started. However, too many powerhouses had died in Yi Chen's hands. Saint Harris of India, Japanese Yin-Yang Master, Heavenly Yin-Evil Master, England's second prince of the Blood Tribe, Totem City's High Priest, Christian. In total, there were more than 20 of them, and they were all supreme powerhouses from the various secret realms and holy lands. Die. At the same time, on the other side of the battlefield, the Patriarch of Hell killed a Beast King from Mount Olympus with a single strike. Yi Wushuang, Luo Tianyao, and the rest killed many people one after another, causing the balance of the battle to tilt in China's favor. On the other hand, the Oracle of Mount Olympus had already fought with the Kunlun ruined saint, Zi Qingtsong, to the heavens. Both sides were injured, and they were fighting with their lives on the line. The West is doomed. What should we do now? Should we run? No, if we run away, the Chinese powerhouses will definitely take advantage of the victory to pursue us. We'll die even faster. How can mad Southern Yi be so powerful? If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have joined the East Punitive Army even if I was beaten to death. At that moment, discussions broke out among the Western Army. Many people were terrified and regretful. At the end of the day, Yi Chen had no enmity with some of the secret realms and holy lands. The reason why they joined in was purely because they thought that mad Southern Yi would definitely lose with so many secret realms and holy lands working together. Therefore, they joined in because they wanted to fish in troubled waters and get a share of the loot. However, who would have thought that after the battle started, it would be such an unacceptable outcome? Now we can only rely on the holy mountain, Mount Olympus Oracle, to turn the tide. Lord Oracle is being held back by the Eastern Saint. I'm afraid he won't be able to care about us unless we have a hidden trump card. Countless Western powerhouses were secretly terrified. It was as if to verify his guess. At that moment, a young man in a suit took a step forward. He looked at Yi Chen and said while sneering, "Mad Southern Yi, don't be too cocky. Before we came, the Blood Clan had a backup plan." The Vatican also has a backup plan. The only remaining red-robed archbishop in the Vatican's camp also sneered. Before everyone could react, the young man in the suit suddenly bit the tip of his tongue and quickly drew a strange blood-colored rune in the air. Your Excellency, the first Prince Nicholas, your most loyal child, Gaia, awaits your arrival with a blood sacrifice. The young man in the suit knelt on the ground, looking extremely pious. As soon as he said that, intense noises came from the western camp that was originally in an uproar. Prince Nicholas. No one knew how long the first prince of the blood clan of England had lived, and no one had seen his face. The only thing they knew was that everyone who had seen him was dead. Moreover, it was said that the current blood clan's devil banquet party was his descendant. This person was known as the father of the blood clan. He's actually going to summon the first Prince Nicholas. If that's the case, Mad Southern Yi will definitely die. Many Western powerhouses were secretly delighted. They stared at the space around them, faintly prepared to welcome the battle. However, as time passed, there was no movement between heaven and earth. In the end, even the young man's expression changed. He kowtowed again and said, Your Excellency, the first Prince Nicholas, your most loyal child, Gaia, awaits your arrival with a blood sacrifice. Are you going to summon this piece of trash? At that moment, a disdainful voice came from the western horizon. Chapter 1035. Who is it? The Blood Tribe youth was shocked. It wasn't just him. Everyone present couldn't help but look in the direction of the voice. Over there, a middle-aged man dressed in black armor walked through the air. With every step he took, black murderous aura filled the air. If one took a closer look, they would realize that he was holding a black box in his hand. The box was wrapped in red cloth. What a powerful, baleful energy! Zombie, he's the Eastern zombie. Many of the Western experts gasped when they saw who it was, especially the red-robed Archbishop of the Vatican. Yi Chen squinted. It's him. The person was Qin Jian, Ying's subordinate. He's actually stepped into the Corpse King stage. The shock in Yi Chen's eyes intensified when he sensed the change in his aura. Seems like he absorbed quite a lot of people. The last time he saw Qin Jian, his strength was still at the level of a supreme giant. Now, he had become a corpse king, and his battle prowess was comparable to a quasi-saint. At the next moment, Qin Jian threw the black box in his hand and it landed in front of the blood-kindred youth. Bang! The moment the black box landed on the ground, it gently bounced open, and a blood-red head was completely exposed to the air. Plop! At that moment, the Blood Tribe youth fell heavily to the ground as if he had been struck by lightning. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Your Excellency, Prince Nicholas! Whoosh! Hearing that, the world was in an uproar. The head in the black box belonged to the mysterious first prince of the Blood Tribe, Nicholas. One had to know that he was an existence comparable to a beast emperor. Now, his head had been chopped off. Yi Chen took a good look at the bloody hole on the head's neck and secretly frowned. Could this be Ying's doing? Your first prince, Nicholas, has been killed by my lord, and your Demon Banquet Alliance has been destroyed by my lord. Qin Jian was dressed in black armor, and his expression was extremely cold. As soon as that was said, the entire place fell silent. Everyone knew that the Blood Tribe was divided into 3 alliances. They were the Demon Banquet Alliance, the Neutral Alliance, and the Secret Alliance. The members of the Demon Banquet Alliance were the strongest, but they were actually destroyed now? I remember now. At this time, in the Western camp, a Beast King roared hysterically, "There's an Eastern zombie that killed his way into our Western camp. He calls himself Ing. It's actually him." Another person's face was filled with shock. It's said that this person was an eternal emperor from the East more than 2,000 years ago, a man of great talent and bold vision. Impossible! At this time, the Blood Clan young man shook his head repeatedly. How can you destroy the Demon Banquet Alliance? Prince Nicholas and the first prince of the Secret Alliance are twin brothers. He will not leave us to die. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Your demonic banquet alliance was annihilated, and the secret alliance's first prince, Nicholas, had all the blood in his body sucked dry by my master and willingly became a slave. Qin Jian laughed coldly and revealed another piece of incomparably shocking news. Even the neutral alliance is no exception. My master unified your Western blood clan, and even your blood clan's ancestor, Cain, was sucked dry of blood by my master and became a slave. Boom! His words were like a bolt from the blue, shocking everyone and causing them to be overwhelmed with shock, unable to recover for a long time. Even the ancestor of the blood clan, Cain, was dead? After all, he was the first vampire in Western mythology. It was because of his appearance that the blood tribe of today came into being. In the Eastern myths, humans were created by Nuwa. In Western mythology, the first human beings were created by God. They were Adam and Eve. The people who came later were born of Adam and Eve, so they were known as the father and mother of all living things. In the Bible, Cain was one of the two sons born to Adam and Eve. Because Cain was jealous of his younger brother Abel, he killed Abel. After that, he was punished by God and became a vampire. Although he was immortal, he had to endure the hunger of mortals. If the Eastern zombie ancestor was Jiangchen, then Cain was the Western vampire ancestor. How did Ing manage to absorb such a powerful being? Amazing! Even Yi Chen was shocked. He could not help but squint and say, Ing will definitely become more powerful after biting Cain. Although he didn't understand the blood kindred, he was still a blood kindred. However, he knew that both zombies and blood clan fed on blood. The higher one's cultivation base was, the more vigorous their vital energy and blood would be. It was a great tonic for zombies and blood clan. Now that Ing had bitten Cain, he was probably going to become a demon. Just as everyone was digesting the shocking news, Qin Jian's cold gaze swept across the place and eventually landed on Yi Chen. Mad Southern Yi, after my master entered the West, he trampled on America, suppressed England, and almost swept through half of Europe. Qin Jian enunciated word by word, My master asked me to come here and make a bet with you. Do you dare to accept it? What bet? Yi Chen frowned. My master once said that the biggest holy places in the West are the Vatican and Mount Olympus. Among them, there's a heavenly kingdom in the Vatican, and the Garden of Gods in Mount Olympus. Qin Jian chuckled and did not hide the arrogance between his brows. My master wants to imitate the Chu River and the Han boundary. Mount Olympus is the Chu River, and the Vatican is the Han boundary. He attacks the Chu River, and you attack the Han boundary. Whoever attacks first will be the winner. Why does he attack the Chu River and I attack the Han boundary? Yi Chen smiled lightly. He was amused by Ying's idea. Qin Jian's smile turned cold. The great Qin dynasty was destroyed by the remnants of the 6 countries. This is the grudge between the great Qin dynasty and the 6 countries that has lasted for hundreds of years. My master naturally wants to destroy Chu. Although the Han dynasty unified the world after the Qin dynasty was destroyed, the Qin dynasty was not destroyed by Liu Bang, the ancestor of Han. In reality, the Qin dynasty was destroyed by the remnants of the 6 countries led by Xiang Yu and the other descendants of Chu. On the other hand, the ancestor of Han, Liu Bang, hid until the end. In the end he fought with the overlord of Western Chu, Xiang Yu, at Gaixiao for hegemony. Only then did he defeat Chu and reap the fruits of the world. Therefore, Ing naturally hated the remnants of the 6 countries the most. He placed all his hatred for the destruction of the Qin dynasty on the 6 countries. Yi Chen could not help but laugh after figuring it out. Following Qin Jian's words, the red-robed Archbishop Schiller of the church was furious. How dare you blaspheme the Almighty Church? Even the beast kings of Mount Olympus had killing intent on their faces. This guy was actually discussing destroying Mount Olympus with someone else. Qin Jian looked at him provocatively. Mad Southern Yi, do you dare to accept the challenge? Sorry, I'm not interested. Yi Chen shook his head. Qin Jian seemed to have guessed his attitude a long time ago. A strange arc appeared on his face. What if this is the bet? At the next moment, a soul appeared in his hand. Yi Chen's calm expression finally changed the moment he saw the soul.